It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. They'll talk about what Google, Facebook, and Amazon can learn from Microsoft's DOJ trials. We'll also talk about a brand new Windows build. It actually came out right in the middle of the show. And the new PowerPoint Coach is here. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 626, recorded Wednesday, June 19th, 2019. Pull the thread and ruin the suit. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology's Advanced Technology Center is like no other testing and research lab, with more than $500 million of equipment, including OEMs like NetApp. And it's virtual, so you can access it 24/7. To learn more and get insights into all that it offers, go to wwt.com/twit. And by the Intrazone Podcast from Microsoft, your bi-weekly conversation and interview podcast about SharePoint, OneDrive, and related tech within Microsoft 365. Get highlights on usage, adoption, and how SharePoint works for you. Subscribe on your favorite podcatcher today. And by Atlassian. Atlassian software powers the full spectrum of collaboration between IT teams and the rest of the organization. Visit Atlassian.com/teams/IT to see what IT can be by giving their products a try for free. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we bore Mary Jo Foley to tears as we talk about the Xbox ad infinitum. Mary Jo Foley from ZDNet, all about Microsoft. Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com and leanpub.com. And I am your humble announcer.
Could we do another all Xbox episode, Leo?
So Justin Salvato did it again, didn't he?
He did.
No. This is so
This is
good.
what you have to watch this to appreciate it. So if you're listening, it's worth
If
watching.
you're listening, you'll sound like you're just listening to the show. It's the pictures that he puts with it. He takes Family Guy video and puts it next to audio from last week's Xbox episode in this case. So yeah, I apologize for you. And by the way, that's about 89% of our audience who are listening.
Right.
But look for Justin's tweet, and here it is. Windows Weekly Criminal Act. Too much Xbox
Before you
talk.
start this next segment, I have to start my Notepad application.
I don't think Microsoft has ever fared well launching earlier than Sony. I guess they didn't fare well launching at the same time. We probably should have anticipated that. I have to be honest, I did not. I was surprised by that. So I thought we were going to see the next-gen Xbox. You look at the release schedule thus far, the original Xbox to the S, to the X, to what this would have been. I think it's a clean couple of years in each case, but that's not what's happened. Have the ability to decide what capabilities they're going to include.
Refresh
They
my
might
memory.
choose frame rate over resolution.
Scarlett. We knew that name. We knew it would be spelled with two T's for reasons no one knows. Mary Jo finally goes off. I have a bigger appreciation of enterprise now. Thank you, Justin.
Oh, my
So
God.
it's the cop in the wheelchair. What's his name? I forget. I can't ever remember.
Right. Why can't I think
I
of it?
love Family Guy, and that's Paul because he does sound kind of like him. I think it's isn't
Right.
it?
It's the guy.
it's
The guy used
Putty.
to play Putty on
Putty's voice, yeah, which sounds
Seinfeld,
just like
yeah.
you. And Mary Jo is the girl in the
Meg.
Meg. That's it.
Megan. Or
Meg.
Yeah, Meg.
Joe. So you're Joe.
Joe
Swanson. She's Meg, and I'm some mysterious stranger who rear ends the car, and it's very fun. It's very fun. Thank you, Justin. His best yet, I think.
I think
Yeah, I think so.
And it's great because it's a sly, backhanded slap to the face for us talking about Xbox nonstop yesterday.
And a nice follow up to the one where Mary Jo had a lot of enterprise stuff, and we fell asleep at the bar.
Yeah, and drooled. Oh, I got to change your locations because you guys are both.
Oh yeah,
back.
we're home.
I wish I was still in Washington D.C.
That was many stops ago. It feels like.
It feels like a long time, but it was just last week.
I can't even keep my head straight anymore.
You're done, though, for a while, I hope.
Yeah, I'm done until I go away this summer. So,
where are you going this summer?
Amsterdam.
It's so funny. He chooses to vacation in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
That cracks me up. You like it, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I do too. It's very nice.
Yeah.
So, I hate to bring up anything.
Work?
Yeah, anything like work. But maybe.
Let's not ruin the atmosphere with work.
I know. So, I guess we could start with antitrust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it looks like everybody is like in trouble now all of a sudden. This
I know.
is just
Not everybody, Leo.
Wait till the debates,
Except
right?
for one company.
So I'm going to have a bingo card tomorrow. Is it tomorrow or the day after for the debates? In which I see which candidates say, let's break up Facebook, Google,
first.
Amazon, Apple. Who's the first to say it?
They're going to be tripping over each other to be first.
Yeah. But as you point out, nobody says anything bad about Microsoft.
Why is that?
I think we should probably say, by the way, at this point, and I'll have to check, but as of close of market yesterday, Microsoft was a $1 trillion company.
As of this morning, they were literally the most valuable company on earth.
Isn't that amazing? Who would have thought that?
I know. Their stock's at $134. I remember when it was stuck at $20
for
forever.
decades.
Remember, it literally was in the 20s for
It was
a straight shot 10 years. Like it was like the dead patient in the hospital where it's it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Let's look. I mean, if you look at the stock price graph, this is intraday, 5 days. Let's look at the max, though. So there was, 1995
you
was
look at that peak. You look at that peak,
which is December 23rd, 1999.
So that little flat area right there in the middle, we're going to call that the Steve Ballmer years.
So, essentially from June 2000, 19 years ago, to, it starts going back up in 2013. So,
remind me again when Satya Nadella became CEO.
Oh, exactly then. These are the Ballmer years, flat.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are the Nadella years, like a hockey stick.
I'm sorry. I said it was flatline, but actually there was a big dip there in 2009. So I assume that was no. Actually, that would have been before Windows 8. So I'm not sure what that was.
10 years ago, it was down to $16.
Yeah.
Wow. Now it's 135 and growing. A $1 trillion company. Very nice. Very nice. You think that was the iPhone dip right there? Was that when Steve Ballmer said nobody else would buy an iPhone?
That was a couple of years after. That's 1 year before the iPad.
But look, this is iPhone release. It is pretty much straight down if you look at that time frame for 2 years. This is the ascendancy of Apple. Wow. So well done. That's
actually that graph laid over Google's and Apple's and Amazon's would be kind of interesting.
I can do that. I'll go to Wolfram Alpha. Hold on.
But so Microsoft had its antitrust troubles. Microsoft spent a lot of time talking publicly about how it didn't have any antitrust troubles. And Microsoft, in my mind, from my experience with the company, was really held back. for a good decade, literally. because of the antitrust stuff.
Yeah, some people call it the lost decade. And
that's a good way to put it.
It was a time when, because they were still being watched by the federal authorities after the antitrust trial ended, they were very, very cautious about tying products together because that's what they got slapped for. Tying IE to Windows. So after that, even if it made sense to try to market or bundle things together, they just didn't do it because they felt like they couldn't.
Oh, those days are over. They're bundling everything now.
They are. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Wolfram with the freebie version I have will only give us 5 years. It'll only go back in time.
Oh,
5 years. It's still kind of an interesting graph, if you want.
Yeah, can you do an arbitrary 5 years?
No.
Okay, because 2007 to 2012 would be kind of interesting.
Let's see. Actually, this is the. I You can just do the last 5 years. You know, all three, Google, Microsoft, and Apple, show very similar trajectories, although Microsoft's the blue one. And you see all of a sudden at the beginning of the year,
that's Apple,
a big enough drop for Apple that didn't quite recover from. So
the thing is,
roughly late 2018, they were, kind of, Apple and Microsoft were similar, but they've been diverging ever since.
If you were able to look at those peaks, those valleys, and try to tie them to some kind of Microsoft announcement, I bet by and large you would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
No.
That's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing I don't quite understand here.
I mean, the stock market, I feel like, isn't really tied to reality, right? I mean, it's more tied to how companies position themselves and investors believe or disbelieve.
Right, but those things occur at quarterly earnings. They occur at public events. Yeah. They occur at product announcements, and you would think, I just remember from back in the day, Microsoft was right at the start of their antitrust stuff. My dad came to me and said he wanted to invest in some kind of a tech stock. And I said, oh, you should go for Microsoft. And he said, why? I said, well, there's only two outcomes for this company. They're either going to beat the rep and then their stock's going to soar, or they're going to be broken up into 2 or 3 companies. You'll own stock in 2 or 3 companies. It'll be great. And then, of course, neither of those things happened because I'm a stock market genius. And and then the stock flatlined for 10 years.
Actually, though, if you look at things like revenue per employee or even just, net income, Microsoft's revenue per employee is a shade under $1 million. Apple's is a shade under $2 million. Google's $1.37 million.
So what surprises me, by the way, about this topic is the number of employees at Apple is greater than Microsoft, but that has to only be because of retail.
Apple's 132,000 employees is 131,000 for Microsoft. So
that's crazy. I would have guessed Apple had half as many.
I would too.
Yeah, a retail 50% of that is retail.
It has to.
Yeah.
It has to.
So I think that's reasonable. And that's, but I tell you, I mean, revenue per employee, when you're talking $2 million per employee, somebody ought to get a raise here because that's really impressive, Apple has artificially boosted stock price by buying back shares. Has Microsoft been doing that as well?
Yeah, they do the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's the problem a little bit with looking at the stock market is that this isn't necessarily organic growth. This isn't the stock market voting with their dollars. This is these companies using their tax windfall from last year to buy back shares, and that inherently increases the value of the share.
And eventually, Facebook will have their own currency, and they'll bypass governments altogether. We won't even be able to have this conversation.
I almost want to. There's a couple of things I want to talk about more today than Microsoft. One of them is Facebook's currency. The other one is the fact that Friday Harry Potter comes out. The game. Okay. So I won't mention that because we don't want to lose Mary Jo.
I'd be more interested in a new C.S. Lewis book or C.S. Lewis book. But,
no, it's Harry Potter Wizards Unite. We finally have a date. It's going to ship on the solstice. It's exciting. I'm not going to be here for
RTM.
Yeah, it's finally their gold master. But no, I think that Facebook currency is what a story that is.
I know.
So actually, I will say, I think their plan makes sense and is a look at what currency probably will become in the future. The little asterisk to this, and it's actually a big asterisk, is Facebook.
I know, right.
I mean, at a time when every regulatory body on earth wants to break you apart, you have announced that you're going to run around governments.
I have a theory.
Currencies.
See, I think Mark Zuckerberg was considering a run for presidency a couple of years ago. That's why he did the 50-state tour and all that stuff. Realized that is a non-starter. His pollster said, Mr. Zuckerberg, we should talk. People think you're a robot. They don't vote for robots yet.
Well, they voted for Obama. But
if you want to run the world, but you realize you can't get elected, well, how much better than a global currency?
Yeah. Say you cite a little higher. Your site's a little higher, maybe like Bond villain level.
Yeah,
like,
this is Emperor of the World. This is not president. This is Emperor of the World.
Well,
don't you kind of think though? I feel like the reason they did this now is they tried to play it as something to help the poor. Do you know like that was kind of how they
do banking? Okay, if you don't have a bank, that's the idea.
Andrew brought this up as well, but actually that's a legit concern. It's interesting. This says a lot. So I actually have a little thing in here later that related to all this stuff about Google was accused of stealing the lyrics from a service.
Yeah,
and what
that
we
was
found out
wild.
since then is actually it was a Google partner that did it.
Well, that's Google's.
But of course, when you hear Google steals from third party, we all say, yeah, of course they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, it's interesting. And this is like the Huawei conversation we could have. But with regards to Facebook, you immediately are cynical. I don't mean you. I mean, a lot of people are. I heard this from a bunch of people. It's like, they positioned it like it was from the poor, like Facebook. It's like, immediately you think this is just a lie to get it past. I don't mean you. I mean one. To get it past the
one thinks.
I honestly, that's actually a big part of, I think, what will make this type of currency make sense in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But I do think they did it as a spin thing and like a PR move. I do.
I think it's sincere in the sense that, the genesis of all of this is people looking at Africa, where M-Pesa, for instance, is hugely valuable because most transactions occur through it over cell phones. Because
that's microtransactions.
Microtransactions. They don't have banking. They all have cell phones, but they don't. So it's same thing in India. And I think
we're running out of places to find the next billion users, right?
For years, companies like Facebook and others have been thinking, this is a good business. That's PayPal was founded on those premises 2 decades ago. This is a good business. What if, there are billions of people who don't have access to computing, internet, and banks. It's what Internet.org, Facebook's internet plan, was really all about. Is this is the next billion.
Sure.
And I think financial services is. Look, if you want to get rich fast, what's the best way to do it? Handling people's money.
Well, that's why all the big companies are in blockchain now, right?
Right.
It's not about Bitcoin, but it's also about, this could be something to rival banks. So we want to be there.
Yeah.
I think this is the future of banks. So does
Facebook, by the way.
Yeah.
No, it clearly, and by the way, PayPal is a partner, as is MasterCard, as is Uber. The weird thing.
But no banks, right? No, not even a single bank.
Understand the threat.
Yeah.
Right.
This is not Facebook is not their friend.
Well, but they're tying the value of the currency to.
No, it's not pegged to 4 different currencies: the yen, the dollar, the euro, and I can't remember the fourth. But
obviously, the peso would be the
peso.
Other one.
No, but it's not pegged. So they're trying to be not volatile without pegging it to the U.S. dollar, which is, I think, also. There's a lot to talk about. This isn't going to happen for a year. Facebook announced it yesterday.
If it ever does.
It may not happen at all.
Right.
Oh, it'll happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless
you think
they
it
get
will?
stopped. Unless regulators stop them. And I
think they're
going to
get stopped.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it depends.
Yeah, because look, the regulators who are already advocating for them to be stopped are probably the same people who want to go after them for antitrust, right?
Oh, and by the way, don't pin your hopes on the next election, because the one thing that both sides of the coin agree on this year is that big tech needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
Right.
However, this is a nonprofit. Global Coin is a nonprofit out of Zurich. I wonder why Switzerland.
So is Skynet, Leo.
You can't stop Switzerland.
What was the company from the Alien movies?
Oh yeah.
This is like their version of that.
It's
like companies run the world instead of countries.
It's fascinating. We're certainly going to spend some time talking about it after the show on This Week in Google. Yeah. But I can't. I think it's the biggest tech story of the year, really.
No.
But you make a
not the
point.
next Surface Go.
I love my Surface Go. You make an excellent point that government might try to stop this. I think
they're going to try.
Yeah.
Or I think somebody already has said publicly who was.
They have.
I forget what committee they were on, saying no, this isn't. happening.
We're literally waiting to talk with you in court. I don't think we're going to let you start a currency.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's part of the tech lash.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What can Microsoft teach these companies from their experiences?
Ethics?
Yeah. So we were thinking about this because today there's a really good piece in Bloomberg by Dina Bass saying Microsoft's missteps offer antitrust lessons for tech's big four. And she went back and looked at the antitrust trial and said, here's only five of the mistakes Microsoft made when they were having their antitrust troubles. And maybe Google and Facebook and Apple could look at this and say, maybe we shouldn't do some of these things.
So,
and
Okay.
Did you see how she broke them up, though? They were good. You know, like they were kind of broad. Well, it was like, don't deny the obvious because
they're
during
good,
its trial.
They almost assume that you're at trial. I mean, the problem I have with this is twofold. One is we already have post-Microsoft examples of big tech with antitrust. Google has 3 antitrust cases in the EU, right. Apple in the EU, Apple in the United States, and also Intel in the EU. And Intel was the first big one after Microsoft. And the first thing they did was immediately settle. We're not gonna we're not gonna fight this. And to me, that's the big one because Microsoft was so belligerent at that time.
They were.
And by the way, this predates the antitrust stuff. I'm doing like a Windows programming history thing, and I'm going back and rereading a bunch of stuff from the early 90s. Bill Gates was in court with regards to Seattle Computing, the guys that made the CPM knockoff that became DOS. And he was terrible in that trial, just like he was later in that deposition he did for the U.S. Department of Justice. I think the big thing is not to get to court in the first place. Settle on your terms.
Yeah. Well, and Microsoft's learned that lesson.
Yeah, don't let a government dictate the terms.
Right.
You dictate the terms.
Right. If you look at recent troubles Microsoft had in Europe with federal authorities, Brad Smith made sure, or whoever was in charge of this, I think it was Brad Smith, that they settled. Right. It was like, no, we're going to not do what we did before.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that lesson is
that's the big one. But I would say, as far as antitrust goes, I mean, these companies are all in trouble. There's no behavioral remedy that any of these companies will enact on their own without at least being approached by antitrust regulators. But I think at that point, you see a little bit with Google. Google, at least they have antitrust issues with Android search and shopping, right? Were those the 3?
Right, shopping,
in Europe. And I think in the last 2 of those 3, they proactively went to the EU and said, here are the proposals we're making that we think will meet your needs. It didn't prevent the fine from occurring, and then the EU came down with their own behavioral, why can't I say that word? Behavioral remedy, which basically matched what Google had agreed to do already. But Google is trying to guide the change, right? And I think that's super useful. It's super smart.
Definitely. And one of the lessons I thought we were coming up with our own things that we would have put on a list. Mine was don't double cross your partners. Because if you look back at what happened to Microsoft in the DOJ trial, the reason this even started was because they were trying to force the hand of their OEM partners like Dell and Lenovo. Well, it wasn't Lenovo at the time, IBM.
IBM was the worst one, I think. Yeah.
IBM, HP, all of those companies, they were trying to make them agree to bundle IE with Windows 95. And if they wouldn't, they were charging them a lot more per copy of Windows. And so, if you look back and you see, okay, Google is being brought to trial here because other competitors of Google complained. But in Microsoft's case, it was their partners who complained.
I know. Well, again,
right?
We said this a few times. I don't think people remember how terrible Microsoft was. We live in this kinder, gentler era from Microsoft. It's hard to imagine Uncle Bill being kind of a dick, but he was terrible, and he was terrible to his own partners. I mean, like you said, IBM. If you look at the balance of power in the PC industry, you chart it from like 1991 to 2001. It starts with IBM at the top and Microsoft at the bottom, and it ends in the exact opposite direction. And the intersection of those dates roughly coincides with this time period you're talking about, which is the mid-1990s, early to mid-1990s, I guess, when Windows 95 was coming. IBM was making OS 2. They had broken up over that. OS 2 ran Windows apps. The advertisement was that it ran Windows better than Windows. And Microsoft did what they always did. They pretended that this agreement was only for a particular version of the product. They did that to Apple back with Windows 1 that didn't have overlapping windows. And they said, just kidding, now 2's out and we have overlapping windows. And they do it to everybody. It's they did at the time. It was a classic Microsoft strategy.
Completely parenthetically, and put a pin in it, but did you see the story that the New York subway system runs on OS 2?
Yeah, is that still true?
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was still
Vice
true.
had the article 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Vintage technology
what version of OS 2, though? What are we talking about here?
Warp.
Wow. You know what? I bet it's super reliable.
It is. It is
well,
super reliable. It is.
Based on our subway performance, I would beg to differ.
Oh, okay. Well, those are the trains. Now they can't.
Well, okay. Age is kind to no one, Mary Jo.
It just.
I certainly had my experiences in Boston with the same
I think
problem.
Google is going to do exactly what you're talking about, which is look at the Microsoft playbook and do that. I think
You do?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Facebook, I see them as being completely defiant. I think their history is to lean in and double down. And I don't.
Yeah.
I see Google as being, okay, they're gonna fight it in court and all this. Facebook knows one thing that's true about U.S. regulators anyway, which is they don't care really about any of this. They honestly, they're putting their finger to the wind and seeing what people are saying. We have gotten to the point in this country where it's every step of the way all about getting reelected. Every step of the way, from the first day you enter the House to the day you leave, it's all about getting reelected. The campaigns started already for November 2020.
Yep.
And so they're looking at polls. They're looking at what people are going to lose interest. People are going to ultimately, I think, especially with Facebook, say, well, I hate Facebook. Yeah, they're awful, but I can't live without it. Don't mess with my Google. Don't mess with my Facebook.
You know what, though? It's awful. It is a sad statement for personal technology that what you just said could apply to whoever was running things at whatever time and whatever period of time you choose to discuss. Back when Microsoft ran the world and that was it. People said that about Microsoft. Like, why do we always have this relationship with technology?
Because we depend on it. And it's
terrible. Like, how
it's
terrible
twice
is it
as bad 20 years later. That's the other thing. This Microsoft story is old news. And the times have changed. And what has changed? We're more dependent. These companies are more integrated into the warp and weft of society than Microsoft ever was. You cannot tear them out without destroying the suit. It's like pulling on the thread. The whole thing goes.
Well, that's the
And
thing I've always
there's
said
one
about
more
Google,
thing,
though,
which
that-
is the surveillance state requires the complicity of Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon.
They're all tripping over each other to work in China.
Yeah.
I mean,
But ultimately, that's who's going to win is the surveillance state, because they're going to say, well, the threat from China is so great, we can't let these great American companies fail.
Sure.
So that's my prediction.
Have we discussed the NSA backdoor in Windows recently? Because
No,
Let me get my tinfoil hat.
You don't hear people talk about that anymore, do you? Isn't that funny?
No,
because the ability of Google to impact some number of people's lives is exponentially bigger than Microsoft.
The NSA.
No, they have a front door. It's a barn door.
They have a front door.
Yeah, come on through. Here's your
barn
advertising
door.
on the way.
And I don't think Google is I don't think Google's evil, honestly. I don't think Apple's evil. And maybe Amazon's evil. Facebook's definitely evil, but I don't think any of that matters.
I mean, I think
They're
Google
all
is evil. In a way
They're all
that,
big
like,
companies.
a robot is evil. Right? It's the cold, calculating. Google's going to be the company that eventually decides the weak link is us, and then it's going to figure out a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what makes it evil, right? I mean, it's you're right. It's just logical and cold, but eventually, a logical and cold assessment of us is going to come out with a negative consequence.
Not to be too cynical either, but the other thing that's changed since the DOJ prosecution of Microsoft is a little Supreme Court decision we like to call Citizens United, which gave corporations the status of people and allowed unlimited campaign contributions. And honestly, I think, Google and Facebook have massive PACs right now.
So does Microsoft.
Yeah,
Huge
they
one.
all do. Well, why would they be foolish not to? So I also think that's going to weigh in. I think against the puny little interests of we the people, all those other things win.
Yeah.
How many jobs did you create last year, Leo?
Yeah. Well,
actually,
I'm a
you
job
probably did
creator.
create jobs.
He
Let me
probably
use a
did,
different
unlike
example.
us.
I'm a job creator. Yeah. Not
You
that
are
that.
a job creator.
But I'm not a big
but
enough
that
job
matters.
creator to
That
get any
matters.
tax break or anything. Yeah.
Do you pay zero taxes?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish.
Just like Amazon.
Sure.
That's the funny thing is that It's really only the massive corporations that are capable of
That's,
taking
by the way,
advantage of
every
these
time
loopholes.
someone says something, well, what way? They're collaborating with the Chinese guy. I mean, you know they are. Like, yeah, you know that Amazon paid $0 in taxes last year, right? Explain to me which of those two companies has a closer tie to their government.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we do subsidize these companies.
Of course we do.
That's corporate subsidies. Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's not be outraged when the Chinese government gave Huawei like $2 billion in loans over 10 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? Amazon makes like $50 billion a quarter and pays $0 in taxes.
And the other thing that's interesting is defense work. So Amazon's all in. They're giving this face recognition. Anybody wants their face recognition, I don't care. Sure. It's yours. And Bezos said, when did it stop being patriotic to do good work for the government? What is Microsoft? So Google backed down, right? They're afraid of their employees.
No, Microsoft says the same thing as Amazon.
Yeah,
they say,
patriotic.
we're doing this out of patriotism and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, accident that they're in Seattle where Boeing is.
Hold on a second. First of all, Microsoft has turned down law enforcement agencies over certain things. So they're looking at it on a case-by-case basis, I think. They obviously feel like they should be all in with the U.S. military. No? What's
I think they do a lot of spin around this, and I think it would be hard. I think it would be hard for them to turn down any government money, just like every company. Like they have a. I guess I don't believe in the do-gooding thing.
They have a responsibility to the shareholders to maximize profits, don't they? Isn't that the job?
They're a company.
They're a company. I mean, you can't even hold it against them.
But they're also a person, Leo, and people have feelings, and I don't understand why you are so hurtful to Microsoft.
The only out is
he can't let go of the Mark Penn thing. He can't.
He can't. No. Gmail guy, here he comes. The only thing that you might say, and I always say this to companies, yes, you have to maximize profits, but are you looking short term or long term? Isn't it in the long term better to do the best for your customers? Isn't that in the long term the best thing to do, not your shareholders? But most shareholders don't have that patience, right? You got people like Kernel Icon, these really activist shareholders who are pressuring. That's one of the reasons all the stock buybacks. People like Kernel
remember
Icon.
Value Act coming into Microsoft and forcing their hand.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. I like your thinking, though, Leo, that Google actually will heed Microsoft's lessons. Because
Google will.
I feel like I think it was
they already
Sprague guy. So one of our readers today on Twitter said, none of these companies ever take lessons from each other. They all think they're so different from each other that they're not going to even go back and look at the history playbook. And I'm like, yeah, maybe.
I don't know about that. No. There are very clear examples of what happens in different places when you do different things. Apple has Apple's experience with the iBook stuff was the climate in Europe was we're not going to win. We're going to settle that case. And the climate here is, you never know. Let's take it to court. And they lost anyway, So I guess we'll see.
Google is like a liberal, a classic liberal. Mm-hmm. They in their heart,
like they're know-it-alls. You mean?
No, in their heart, they think they have to. Oh, we got to do the right thing. Facebook is the classic conservative. Doesn't matter. We're going to do what we want to do, and we're going to make it work. But
they'll pretend. But they want to pretend.
They'll play all the games. They'll pull all the strings. Right. Google, though, is the problem is it's from within. In their own hearts, they can't bring themselves to be rapacious.
Oh, I see.
Facebook has.
I do believe
Facebook
that
has
Google
no compunctions.
It's good. Google probably believes it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And
I think almost no one on earth believes that Google is good.
Doesn't matter. Internally, they're trying to be good.
Yeah.
That's why they're going to listen.
I have a dog that's like that, but you know what? She's gotten up on two legs and taken chicken out of a bowl.
The meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. But I think that's in a way a weakness of Google is it's classic Northern California liberal. They just want to be they don't want to be bad. And it's in their DNA.
They don't want to be bad.
They might be bad, but they don't want to be bad.
Do you think there's a company, one of these companies wants to be bad?
Yes.
Okay.
I think absolutely. There's two companies, Amazon and Facebook.
Yeah.
Who that Jeff Bezos answers to a higher authority.
Well, but that higher authority is Beelzebub.
Yeah, it's not, I'm going to do the right. Jeff Bezos never says, what would be the moral, ethical, right thing to do? Jeff Bezos says, what would be the effective thing to do?
So I will say that Amazon, just from a personal tech perspective, Amazon does position its consumer products against Google's by pushing the privacy stuff that's going on in the Alexa ecosystem. You know, they have the ability to go back and delete things automatically over time. You know, they're doing that kind of stuff. On the other hand, I believe an Amazon device told someone to kill their parent or something.
What?
You know, it's kind of wasn't there that weird instance where it actually was telling someone? Yeah, it was literally like the dog told me to do it, except now it's like the Echo told me to do it.
Well,
the next Son of Sam will be talking about how his personal digital assistant is true.
That's actually a good point. I never thought of that, but you're right. You'll blame the Echo.
Stephen King, if you use that idea, I'd like a little bit of money. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah. The Amazon is a classic monopolist because they have such a domination in one market and are using it to push into new markets.
It feels like they're a grandmaster, and that Jeff Bezos has planned this from day one. Every step of the way is very smart.
But how is Google any different than this, right?
No. Google's a random walk. Look at what Google does with its products. It's a random walk. And it's because they're conflicted. They have inner conflicts. Let's do Inbox. No, let's not do Inbox. Let's do Wave. Let's not do Wave. Let's do Google. Let's not do.
So,
do you think that's just incompetence more than conscience?
Well, I think inner conflict looks like incompetence because it leads to vacillation. But I think I
think she's onto something.
Somebody in the chat room said it's a mistake to anthropomorphize companies, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Agree.
But they are run by people.
They're run by people, but
are they?
I guess maybe because I'm old and old school that I feel like in the end, all they care about is making money, all of them.
Oh, yeah, I think that's true. But there is also, you got to admit, a culture.
There is. And, there are different cultures, and look at the culture under Gates and also the time frame too. Culture under Gates in the 1990s versus under Satya now,
it's very different,
right?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, but hold on a second. If Microsoft was the way it was now, then it wouldn't exist, right? So you have to have the right leader for the right time. The problem that Microsoft got into, which was the problem that Apple got into with Steve Jobs, is that person was right for when they were a hungry young company trying to grab market share and push aside competitors. But once they became a monopolist, that behavior became illegal. And now they're just jerks, you know? And it's illegal. Apple ran into that, and Microsoft obviously did. And, Google, I think the way Google and Amazon to me are a little bit similar because there are all these businesses that couldn't exist that they have that are being subsidized by the one thing that's truly, really dominant for them.
Search.
And
advertising.
Yeah, search and advertising, right? Yeah. So like a lot of these Google Play Music or Google Play, the TV thing they have, or whatever it is, like this stuff couldn't exist on its own. It would be could never compete. Apple's doing it now with their music service, with the video stuff, the game service. They've got the news. You can't tell me like an Apple news service that wasn't completely subsidized by the iPhone would make any sense for anybody today. Nobody would ever launch that service.
How about this theory? If a company has a strong leader at the head with a clear vision, it's going to be more effective, and it's going to go in the direction of that leader, Bill Gates or Satya Nadella. What Google seems to lack, frankly, is that cohesive, strong leader vision. Microsoft has it. Amazon has it. Facebook has it. Apple
it's worse than you're saying, because Google, in some ways, right in the middle of their rise to power, said, we're going to make this company a subsidiary of a bigger shell company that has these other companies. And, like the crossover between executives, between all the companies is going to be a little squishy. And
that flat period in the Microsoft chart, that was where Google is right now, where you have internecine battles between different groups. Nobody is ascendant. Right. What you're seeing at Google now, what you saw with Alphabet, was Ruth Porat, the CFO, coming up with a financial structure that made sense. But then you've got Larry doing his thing. Sergey, God knows what he's doing. You have Google's exactly.
These guys just showed up to an internal meeting for the first time in 7 months.
7 months.
Nobody even knows where they've been.
So I think Google's at that place Microsoft is at that Steve Ballmer place where you have too many little fiefdoms and nobody running the show.
There are way too many things going on at Google for sure.
And it's all reductionist in any case to say what I'm saying because it's a complex, chaotic beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're trying to understand what
beast
these companies
is a good word, by the way.
Yeah. Beast with many backs. If you're trying to understand what these companies are going to look at going forward, I don't think they're going to see regulation. And if anybody's harmed by this, if anybody looks to the Microsoft lesson and ends up being the weakling in it, it will be Google.
Oh, okay. Well, I agree with that. I think regulation or the threat of regulation will engender some form of change. It's going to be like anything else in life. It won't go as far as we want. It won't be as good as we want, whatever. But the path we're on now is unsustainable. I'm amazed at how quickly this has come together.
But what does it look like if I mean, I can't see a way out.
A way out? Well, a way out of what? Like,
I mean, the best I think you're going to see is maybe they'll say, "Oh, Google, you have to get rid of YouTube. Microsoft, Facebook, you have to get rid of Instagram." I don't know. You're not going to break. You don't think these companies will be broken up? You don't think in any scenario at all? Elizabeth Warren gets elected and breaks up. She doesn't even have the power to do that as president.
Elizabeth Warren gets elected in our version of the Hunger Games. I think.
I'm not sure breaking them up is a strategy to weaken them either. I mean, like if you look in hindsight about what if Microsoft had been broken up along Windows and Office, right? Would it have been a stronger and better pair of companies instead of one?
That company exists today. It's called Microsoft. They didn't actually break into different companies, but the problem of the day was there was a supposed Chinese wall. Remember that term between Office and Windows, and we're developing these things. Now the Office team back then was if they had been split up would have been forced to support rival platforms. Today they openly embrace rival platforms. They're doing it all on their own. The notion of the Office running best on Windows is something no one really talks about anymore.
Yeah.
It may technically still be better in some ways, I guess, but I mean that's not really the selling point. The selling point today is wherever you are.
If they had been forced to break up, say in 2000, right, and there was a Windows company and an Office company, they might have actually done better, right? They might have Office might have had to come to the realization that they had to support other platforms way before Satya Nadella.
That was my point. I'm sorry. That was literally my point.
Right. So when we're talking about breaking up Google or Facebook or Apple, you could maybe think about will it make them stronger instead of weaken them, right?
Well, from the company's perspective, if you're like Facebook as an example, I guess, if you're Facebook and you're like, look, these guys they want to break us up, they want to do this, whatever it is, at that point you have to kind of decide what's most important to you, right? And it may be the thing that's most important to Facebook is not Facebook. Maybe it's WhatsApp, or maybe it's this currency thing, or maybe it's something else. Who knows? Maybe it is Facebook. I don't know. Because a lot of talk around Facebook has been maybe we need to go back and take Instagram away from them, take WhatsApp away from them.
That's about all you can do. I don't see what else you could do. I mean, you're not going to say, okay. I mean, what divisions would you break Facebook up into?
I know.
And how would you solve the fake news problem if Facebook is 4 different companies?
Right.
Well, that splitting wouldn't solve that problem. That problem is, and I think, is it Google or some company just agreed, or as part of some antitrust, maybe in Europe, has a monitor that's going to be of it.
Facebook had a monitor, by the way.
Is it Facebook? Oh, did they?
Just like Microsoft, yeah.
I know Microsoft did, yeah.
Facebook
but I thought
did exactly what I predicted they would do, which is ignored the monitor, and then they got in trouble for ignoring the monitor.
Yeah. Well, but that's
they were
that's
fined.
Weak oversight.
I think they were fined like $18 million. Like it was like the most ridiculous. Mark, no cigarette money for you tomorrow. I just don't. It's fascinating to watch. I think, though, getting back to the Facebook currency, that might be somewhere where I don't think there's anything to do retroactively, but government could easily say, well, this is a step, this is a bridge too far. We won't let you do that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By the way, you could make an argument that is a national security threat.
You could, and I would make the argument it's a threat to the banks And
that is part of national
Federal
security.
Reserve.
The sovereignty of the banks and of our national currency and of the
It's
worth
a threat
and
to
the
national
value
sovereignty.
that this.
Yes.
I think it's a threat, and thus is a threat to national security.
National sovereignty. And I think that
Both.
that could be a good thing.
Okay, I'm not looking. I'm just saying. I'm looking for an excuse to prevent Facebook from doing this.
What would be a problem if there were some globally accepted currency? Especially if that currency could easily be translated into euros and yen and dollars.
Yeah, the problem occurs on the road to that thing, right? Because there's a whole global financial system that is pretty wobbly.
Right.
Yeah.
This will be so much better.
Oh, no, I'm not agreeing.
And by the way, right now the centralization is in the banks, right? They keep the ledger.
Sure.
Decentralize it.
They did
What
a
an
great
interesting
job
idea.
in 2008. What's the problem?
Yeah. Look, I think there's no question we're going to live in historically interesting times, bizarre times in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
This is just one of many threads.
And you know what? I just want to point out, because I think this is important, Microsoft was the innovator here. Right?
I like how you always bring it back to the positive.
Isn't he
Paul.
good? He's so positive.
Also back to the Microsoft.
Exactly.
Rename him from Eeyore to
Microsoft.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
I do think, though, that Bloomberg article notwithstanding, there's not a lot to be learned from the Microsoft case, because I think it's a very different world.
The timing is what makes this so hard to compare to me. 2 decades ago, like what the tech landscape looked like, and now, right?
It's really the case that these companies are woven into the fabric of all society.
Sure.
In a way, Microsoft Windows was not. It was dominant, but it wasn't.
You got to rip those tubes out and wake up from the Matrix, Leo.
Can I not? Can I take the red pill?
I'm actually, I'm 52 years old. I think I'm going to ride out the Matrix thing, if that's all right.
I actually like the Matrix. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's comfortable and warm.
Yeah. They can have my energy. They can harvest my energy. So I thought your take on the Google thing was kind of interesting, Paul. You think that it wasn't Google, it was this contract company, what is it, Lyric Now?
I'm not sure if they named the company or not, but they basically came out and said, look, we saw these reports and we don't scrape from the web, but we do contract third parties
with people who scrape,
provide us with lyrics. And are they scraping? We've asked.
We don't know.
And honestly, that's all you can do. That's all you can expect.
This is the brilliance of the modern tech conglomerate is contract it out, then you have deniability.
Okay, but hold on a second. See, this is what I'm talking about. You think they contracted out so they could have deniability?
Yes, because if they weren't such cheapskates, and I think they have a little bit of money, they could have gone to each publishing company, the people who actually own the lyrics, and bought them. Said, we would like to buy the rights to put those in our search results. Both of you
pointed out that the bottom line for both these companies is to derive as much value for shareholders. They're not cheapskates. That cheapskate is a person.
They're saving.
They are saving as much money as they can to deliver the same service they would have otherwise at greater cost.
Also, and I think they may end up doing this, instead of publishing the entire lyric, and this is what Genius doesn't like, because if you search for a lyric and you get the first verse, say, and a link to Genius would say, snippets, good idea. This is not a snippet. This is the whole lyric. You got what you wanted. You're done.
Okay, but then you're getting to a legitimate complaint, which I don't think was the complaint.
No, that's the real complaint.
The complaint is
they're killing
Google's
traffic.
doing what Google always does, which is they're sucking as much stuff into their site and not letting people go to other people's sites. Yes.
If you had if you go to the lyric searches, what you'll find at the bottom is a copyright from the music publisher, but not a link to the source of the lyrics.
Well, that might be the biggest problem on the internet today is the lack of attribution. But did you see there was an editorial in the New York Times today about it? Actually, it was from the guy who runs DuckDuckGo. I don't remember if it was the CEO, president, founder, whatever he was. And what he was basically saying is that there are two forms of online advertising. There's the natural advertising. I guess you search result, you search for some product, and you see ads that are related to that product or that kind of product. It makes sense.
Yep.
That's what everyone wants. And then there's the highly invasive, privacy-stealing, invasive ads where they're tracking you around the internet. They're using AI algorithms to try to figure out what it is you really want. And those are the sources of, Mary Jo and I are talking about like a Nexus phone or something. And then tomorrow, Mary Jo on a different computer with a different device, a different browser, whatever, starts seeing ads for that phone. And she's like, oh, that's weird. I was just talking to Paul about that.
Yep.
As it turns, according to this guy, nobody wants that second form of advertising. It's actually less lucrative for advertising.
Doesn't seem to work, even though that's counterintuitive, but it doesn't seem to work.
It's terrible. But companies push this to such a degree that basically, I think every operating system, Windows has this. I know Android has it. There's a little control where you can say, don't use personalized ads. Right. And his point is, look, this stuff doesn't work. So let's stop invading everyone's privacy and just give them ads based on what they're looking at.
That may end up being the outcome of governmental intervention is just changing the default.
Right.
I'd be happy with that, to be honest.
Well, that's what Microsoft did with the privacy changes.
Right.
Like, it hasn't gone far enough, but settings on the screen, it's a start because people were so appalled by what it was, right?
I will say, for whatever it's worth, when you set up Windows 10 for the first time on a new computer, or if you reinstall whatever it is, you get those screens, right? And one of the screens is I think what you're referring to, where they have the privacy controls. Yep. As weird as I can be about certain things and configure everything exactly the way I want, that's one example of something I've evaluated once, and I said I'm going to stop thinking about this. I leave it alone. It's fine. Like I have no problem with what Microsoft does with regards to privacy in Windows 10. I think that entire issue is somewhat made up. That there are obviously people are very concerned about privacy, and everything is a slippery slope, and everything is a once you take the one thing away from us, you're going to take everything away, that kind of thing. But I think what Microsoft is doing with privacy in Windows 10 is fine. The issue I have is they keep talking about it and pretending they're doing more, and it's like, guys, it's fine. It's fine.
It's interesting how they're embracing privacy. They'll look at Apple and say, yeah, this is a good positioning for us. It's something you've been saying for some time, Paul.
Yeah, this is the anti-Google thing. It's also the anti-Mark Penn thing, but let's not worry about that part of it. It's when Microsoft is going up against let's say Amazon and Google especially. I mean, this is perfect, and their whole stance under Satya Nadella and partnering with everybody, and nobody's an enemy, and this is it. This is why Microsoft won't be pursued by antitrust regulators today. I think, except for little mistakes. I mean, everyone's going to make mistakes. Like the GDPR is obviously a fairly onerous requirement. There are going to be mistakes, and they're not going to be malicious mistakes on Microsoft's part. They're going to be oversights, whatever. They'll fix those things. But I mean, any big company with lots of customers is going to run into something. But in Microsoft's case, their public face is so positive and so correct, and I just don't see them ever having issues with this kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And I also think part of the reason Microsoft's not under scrutiny is they're not a monopolist anywhere anymore.
No.
Yeah. Right.
It's that damn Linux. Go after Linus Torvalds. He's the guy.
Go after him. They don't have to go after him. They embraced it. WSL is in.
I know.
Windows.
Yep.
Yeah.
I put Windows back on my ThinkPad because I want to have Linux in my
WSL.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I just want to try WSL.
We got some news for you coming up.
Oh, exciting.
We do.
Exciting. It's okay. Yeah, actually, so it's funny because I did just reinstall Windows 10 on my ThinkPad X1 Extreme. And so I saw those settings you were talking about, Paul. Before it says, do you want Cortana? And I felt a little rude, but I said no.
Right. Don't feel rude. You're not. Yeah.
It doesn't do anything, though, because I still have Cortana. I don't understand what it did.
So the Cortana icon remains in Windows. It actually remains in Windows 1903 as well. They've separated from search. The difference is I believe if you say no, it's not tied into your Microsoft account. So it doesn't have the personalization stuff.
Okay.
I always say no to that.
It does say that. It says I don't have personalization. I can't help you.
Yeah, so I turn it off. I just get rid of it. I never use Cortana.
There's a PowerShell. I haven't yet gone through my PowerShell commands to get rid of all that stuff, but there's a good one to get rid of. Even the box. I mean, there's just suddenly it's just as if it never existed. And initially I thought, this will be nice to have a voice assistant. I never use it.
No, never. No, but that's again, when Microsoft jumped off a cliff with Windows 8 and we're going to go all mobile and touch first and everything, I don't think there was a lot of thought about whether that stuff actually made sense for PCs. I think the only fear there was that this is going to take over the world, which it is and was.
Right.
And we need to react, and they reacted decisively. But, in retrospect, you look at that and you're like, well, honestly, PCs are still PCs, and this stuff doesn't make sense for most people.
Right. Let's take a break. And I do want to talk a little bit about Windows. I'm curious to hear about WSL2 and a whole lot more. But first, a word from our sponsor. Today, we're brought to you by Worldwide Technology, a great group that has built an amazing advanced technology center. Worldwide Technology began building 10 years ago. It's grown exponentially, and it now is the preeminent testing and research lab for anybody, including you, who's looking at enterprise gear. The lab includes more than $500 million in equipment. This is a big investment for WWT. Hundreds of OEMs, ranging from Cisco and NetApp and VMware, plus emerging disruptors like Tanium and Equinix and Expanse. If you are a WWT partner, I think you will vouch for the fact that the partnership with WWT is great. They know Worldwide Technology is where they can go to get the answers they need to make sure their business runs right. When you're buying expensive enterprise software and hardware, it's you got to do the work. You got to do the research. You just don't get, well, let's buy that switch and see how it works. No. The Advanced Technology Center at WWT is an incubator for IT innovation and gives you the chance to really bang on this stuff before you buy. Hundreds of on-demand integrated solutions labs representing the newest advances in things like flash storage. You're thinking about getting enterprise-grade flash storage? Man, that is expensive. And it can be the greatest thing ever, but you got to see how it works. Software-defined networking, another new area. Network automation, endpoint security architecture. Here's the deal. You learn about the products before you launch. WWT's engineers use these environments so they can quickly spin up proofs of concept and pilots as a consultant to show you, set up a sandbox so you can confidently select the best solutions. This is going to really simplify your job, reduce the time from concept to execution from months to weeks. But they also offer lab as a service, something you can use, a dedicated lab space within the ATC, so you can perform your own programmatic testing using any of those $500 million in gear that's in there. And it's completely virtual. You don't have to travel to St. Louis. You can do it from wherever you are, 24/7. This is such an impressive company. And when I learned about what WWT is doing, I was very excited. I really said, good, I can't wait to tell you about this. WWT, Worldwide Technology, they've got a new digital platform coming up later this summer with hands-on access to more than 200 lab environments, something you can use. I'll tell you what, this is the time to learn more about Worldwide Technology, their Advanced Technology Center, and sign up. You can right now for pre-launch access to their new on-demand lab platform. Where do you go? www.com/twit. WWT simplifies the complex. www.com/twit. WWT, delivering business and technology outcomes around the world. We thank them for their support of Windows Weekly. Thank you, WWT, and we thank you for supporting us by using that special address. www.com/twit. Make sure you use the /twit. All right, we've spent enough time talking about the other guys. Let's talk about Windows. What's new?
What do we got?
What do we got?
Oh, the WSL2 news.
Okay, you want to do that now? I didn't want to, push you.
Actually, it's the next thing on the list.
Oh, good.
Perfect. There's a possibility, I guess, of a new build today, Mary Jo. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
So we haven't had a chance to look at WSL2 yet, right?
But yes, we have. So the first 20H1 build that includes WSL2 happened last week.
Oh, that's what I got last week. Okay.
Yeah, so if you're on the fast ring, you have access to WSL2, and it has dramatically faster file access and performance.
If you're on Pro.
If you're on Pro.
Would I get it on home on my Go?
I think on home also.
Really? Oh.
Right?
Yeah, because I'm on fast ring.
I don't know. I'm not running 20H1, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I'm looking at an FAQ that Microsoft put out about WSL2, and it says, will WSL2 be available on Windows 10 Home? Yes.
Yes. Nice. But maybe not.
All those home users running Linux. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
and The way it works, as we've talked about before, is it uses Hyper-V architecture to enable the virtualization underneath. So even home will get this kind of lightweight Hyper-V.
I'm telling you, this is the future of Windows right here. Not WSL.
Yeah, I know.
This Hyper-V stuff. You know, Microsoft used Hyper-V to provide the Xbox One with a bunch of different software personalities. It uses Hyper-V for Sandbox. I realize it's a modified version. They are clearly working toward a something where some light version of Windows in the future can run legacy apps in some kind of a virtualized container, and it obviously will be based on Hyper-V. This is, I feel like we're watching the experiments happening in real time.
Yeah, the way they describe it is a subset of the Hyper-V feature. So it's not like the Hyper-V that you currently know is going to just suddenly be on home. It's just going to be used underneath the covers of WSL2 to support how that works.
Yeah, right.
Linux kernel on Windows, everyone.
Hooray. That's what I've always wanted.
I knew you did. I knew you were waiting for that.
Or something.
Well, I have to say I still have a dual boot to Linux and Windows, just in case.
I mean, I don't use Mac OS full time, obviously, but for many years I've had some kind of weird Frankenstein thing going on whatever Mac I'm using at the time, where it's, you know, Mac OS, right, running as the operating system, and then you have, I use Parallels, but I think you could do this with VMware as well.
Will do it too, yeah.
And there's like this confluence, I think is the word they use, the mode where these things run together. So you get like Windows apps pop up as Windows apps inside of Mac OS, and it's like this crazy back and forth between the two environments. But, you know, it works. I mean, it requires a lot of processing power and RAM, of course, because it's a virtualized environment. But it's, you know, it's kind of cool what you can do. And if you can get it lightweight, which it seems like Microsoft is doing here, yeah, you're essentially, this is kind of the dream of NT, wasn't it? In the beginning, it was going to have all these different,
what did they call them?
Personalities,
personalities, right? Yep.
But, you know, it was going to be OS2 and Windows.
POSIX.
And, POSIX was part of it. And you were going to be able to plug in other ones, you know. And of course that kind of went by the wayside, but it's still kind of architecturally structured that way.
But there's another imperative, which is for security. Isolating processes is very good for security.
Yeah, so if they come out with this light thing in the future that we keep talking about, you know, if they can figure out a way to do lightweight containers or virtualized environments, whatever it is for desktop Windows applications, that's a great way to handle backward compatibility in a way that doesn't impact the underlying system, just the structure of it, but also the security ramifications of that. You know, these things, they're, you know, be like a nice one-click install, uninstall kind of deal. You don't have to worry about the messy details underneath. The file system is virtualized, the registry is virtualized, whatever it is. I mean, I keep waiting for it to kind of happen, but every time I see something like this, I think this is a step. You know, this is a step toward that future. It's
really, I think, a great future. And it does, so it's you get both benefits. You get the security benefit, and you get the ability to run other personalities. And given Nadella's kind of positioning of Microsoft, I think that makes sense that maybe someday you'd be able to have a Mac personality in there. And
plus, you can run the right version of Emacs, you know.
You know, Emacs in Windows is a constant problem for me. It's really the only reason I don't use Windows full time.
Emacs in Windows is like Windoom. You know, it's not quite right.
It is.
You know.
Why am I seeing? So I ran the Surface update just to see if I would have WSL2, and it did a firmware update, and now I'm getting like I'm installing Windows from scratch. Get even more out of Windows.
Oh, jeez. Oh, so maybe you updated to the latest build. That's probably what that is.
Oh, maybe that was it. As part of the reboot.
So you have 20H. You're in the fast ring on that?
I'm on the ring where you get preview releases.
What is this preview ring?
Yeah, release preview. So this is still 1903.
Okay.
Yeah. You only get WSL2 in the build if you're on the fast ring right now.
Okay. For 20H1, Which brings us to 19H2, Mary Jo.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Is it? Yep. Where is it? And especially where is it? Because yesterday Microsoft did their first build of 20H1 for Windows Server.
Right.
So now even the Windows Server insiders are on 20H1 with no mention of 19H2 anywhere in sight.
Let me ask you a question. How much time goes by, or how close do we get to October before we just kind of admit to ourselves and to the world that there's no such thing? Like, it's not going to happen.
No, it is going to happen. So it has to happen. Here's why it has to happen. It's very simple why this has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of IT pros are only going to update to the second build, the second feature update each year because it has 30 months of support,
This
right?
is the versus 18. Okay, but what if they
They have to have a 19H2. They have to have a 19H2.
All right, so on that note, though, what if 19H2 could just be 1903 with whatever app updates and security updates, and they could just call it? It would basically be 1903 Service Pack 1.
That's what I believe will happen. I think 19H2 is just going to be almost like a cumulative update to 1903. Yep. I've had a couple sources say if there are any new features that are introduced as part of 19H2, as part of 20H1 that they want to backport to 19H2, they'll be turned off by default. So they're like, the idea is we're going to make this as minimal and as non-disruptive as possible. 1982.
This would be the greatest thing that ever happened to me because
yes, it would.
Otherwise I will never be able to catch up with my book. True. It's so hard keeping up to date because they move so quickly. Right.
Yep. So we still haven't heard a word from Microsoft about 19H2. We haven't heard, are they only going to test it in the release preview ring? Are they going to let Fast Ring test it? When are they going to start testing it? When is it going to be ready? Like they're even hedging. Like when people are asking about, they're like, yeah, well, if it's ready, the normal pattern would be it would be out in the fall. I'm like, wait, what do you mean if it's ready? You're doing 2 feature updates a year. Like it's not an if, it is a yes. So we don't know anything, and they have been on record as saying they were going to talk in the spring about 19H2. So we're almost out of spring. Now,
we're literally 2 days from spring being over.
Right. So maybe today we'll hear, but I'm kind of doubtful. I just am wondering when they're going to finally spring it on us. No pun intended.
Pardon the pun.
And so if you go back to server for a second. So server 20H1 had a couple updates. So they're on the same build number as 20H1 in the fast ring on Windows 10 client. It's 18917. They had a few things around virtual machine tools. They had some things just to increase overall performance, Azure integration functionality. And then they had some new updates to the Windows Admin Center console that they're now calling 1906 just to keep things really all over the map with build numbers.
Oh, God. Could you just not do that?
I know. Yep. So if you're somebody who is testing Windows Server semi-annual channel, you can start testing 20H1 as of yesterday. But
have we really?
I don't know.
Have we really accepted now the fact that we are testing software for next year? Have we accepted that fact?
I think we have to accept it.
What happened in 1909?
Yeah. Well,
that's 19H2, right?
We don't know.
So, but think about this too. Wait till you think about this. What are they going to call next year's 20H1 when it comes out? Are they going to call it 2003, which would be super confusing, right? Windows Server 2003 is what it would look like. By the way, that
might be the reason they moved to this H1, H2 thing. They were sort of looking forward. They said, guys, you know what's going to happen? We're going to run into these years again because 1903 is cute, and then in 19 whatever is fine because you're not going to hit a 1998 or whatever. But you hit 20. That's right, 2003.
So Taro Alhonen, who always listens to us, said just sent me a pointer. Somebody asked Brandon LeBlanc from Microsoft, "Are we going to hear about 19H2 this week?" Nothing new to share this week. Sorry. So no, not going to hear about it this week.
Wow.
Well. That solves that.
That's that.
Okay, let's
just keep speculating
and
keep speculating here.
It's going to be a good year. All right. Suddenly I got I'm back in Washington D.C. Oh, here we go. Here we go. What's next?
1803 we should talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So where did this information come from?
So this is a good time to plug this. There is a fairly new account on Twitter called @WindowsUpdate. The Windows Update team has started to tweet. Yesterday, they tweeted, hey, you know what? We're working on this machine learning algorithm so that we can start pushing 1903 to anybody who's on 1803, which we knew was going to happen. Microsoft disclosed that was planned for June, but they haven't given us any details about like how are they going to push it and when, and is it going to be staggered? But yeah, so they acknowledged yesterday on Twitter it's happening. Basically, it's happening. So yeah, get ready. When we know the details, we'll tell you how they're going to push it and when and what will happen to you if you're on 1803. We don't know any of that, but it's coming. It is coming. A little scary.
They're going to force it on people? What is?
Yeah, so, they had a blog post a few weeks back where they said, we're going to make 1903 a staggered rollout and we're going to take our time, make sure everything works. Then they said, but in June, if you're on 1803 or earlier, we're going to start pushing 1903 to you. And that's all they said. They didn't say how, who exactly this is going to impact or when. So we know it's happening, but we don't know any of the details about how.
Yeah. And people haven't had problems with 1903. I've had no problems with 1903,
well,
right?
There've been a couple small things. I guess there was the black screen that, that was actually 1809. There was a black screen thing, I think. There was a
USB
privacy
drive thing. Did they totally fix that? Because somebody called me on the radio show and was having trouble with 1903, and I said, do you have an external drive? He said, yeah. I said, try unplugging it and doing it.
Try right-clicking it.
Yeah, right-click on
Turn
it.
Turn it on and off.
But I remember when they said we solved it, it's like, well, we mostly solved it or something.
Yeah. Yeah, they said this week they fixed a privacy setting screen bug that affected a small number of 1903 users. So I did hear from one person who said, hey, I'm missing a bunch of the privacy settings they said were coming in 1903 when I turned it on. So I guess they just recently, as of yesterday, with a cumulative update, fixed that.
But there have been no
I
big
haven't heard major
things.
I haven't heard any huge things.
That's good. Yeah,
it is good.
I mean, given what happened last time, this is a huge improvement.
Why? What happened last time? I don't
remember, but it seemed I just have a dim memory of pain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something akin to childbirth, but I've blanked it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, good.
Oh, yeah, speaking of that painful build, we won't acknowledge 1809.
Yes.
So, how Microsoft finally did start pushing that out to people, not everyone, but some people. And the one piece that was missing from 1809 was Hyper-V Server 2019. That release, it got put out just like all the other things did in the beginning of October. Then they pulled it back. And then people kept saying, where is it? It's still not on the evaluation center. Where is it? Where is it? And every time I asked Microsoft, because readers kept asking me about this, it's a standalone version of Hyper-V in server form. They kept saying, yeah, we're just about to re-release it. We're ready. Here it comes. And it only came out this past Saturday. So that was 8 months after
right on schedule.
1809 started rolling out. Let's just say 1809 was pretty much a complete.
Let's call it the release that shall not be named.
I was thinking of saying something, but I don't
names.
think I should say it on the air.
Its problems are legion.
A complete messed up experience of it.
But remember how we were, very critical and said, how does this get through the process, blah, blah, blah. And Microsoft said, we're going to change things. And maybe they did, because I want to give them credit.
All they had to do was slow it down. And they did in a way. But really, the ultimate slowdown is what's sort of happening this year, right? They're really only going to have one major release this year.
I guess that's right, yeah.
They refuse to just acknowledge it, but they're basically doing what Mary Jo asked for, which is have an R2 release for the second one.
Yeah, that's why 1909 is not Nobody's talking
Right,
about
and
it.
I think the reason we're not talking about it is because you suggested it, and they can't stand giving you the credit for this, but I'm going to do it right now.
It's
You know, like you
Joe's
said about
fault.
Stephen King, I would like the royalties.
Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
Microsoft.
Yeah, right. You should get the credit for that. Also, for whatever it's worth, since we're on this topic, you have been on this Hyper-V thing since the day it happened. Like, you were
I've
the
been
only one
hyper
talking
about
this.
Hyper-V. I've been.
And it is weird. It's been, what is that? Like 9 months almost.
Yeah. And the reason I kept on it was because almost like every week I get a note from a reader saying, hey, do you know where Hyper-V 2019 is? Because it's not in the Evaluation Center. It's not there.
Yep.
So, yeah,
and to be clear,
that's why
this is a free
stuck with
product.
it.
So it's the one thing in the Evaluation Center that's not an eval version. You just get it and you get it. It's the full product.
It's supposed to be on Visual Studio subscriptions today or tomorrow, one of those 2 days. But so you can also get it that way too. Yep. Yeah, Taro is also reminding me that if you go to the Microsoft, I forget what they call this page, their Health Center dashboard or something like that, you can see the list of known issues for 1903 on that page. And under version 1903, known issues and notifications. So there's a list of things, but again, I haven't heard a lot of these complaints, and they're somewhat minor compared to what we saw with 1809. You know, like some people had Windows Sandbox may fail to start with error code, blah, blah, blah. Right. Display brightness adjustments, that kind of thing. Again, nothing like what people were yelling about with 1809. I really haven't had almost anybody send me a note saying, hey, 1903. The only thing I've heard about 1903 is people complaining that they tried to put it on their PC or it wasn't offered for their PC and they couldn't figure out why.
Right. Actually, the biggest complaint is, I have a Microsoft Surface device. How come I have not been offered this release? What's going on? I mean, which is, by the way, is a great question. But if we go back in time 6 months or 9 months, I guess, 10, whatever it was, remember we were talking about, referring to this as kind of like a chatter thing, like it was like, governmental and, intelligence. When there are problems, I hear a bunch of it personally from people like you do, like Mary Jo does. I mean, this is like one of those ways that you can tell there's something going on. I'm hearing this from too many different people. Mm-hmm. That's not been the case in 1903. It's nice.
That's good. Yep.
Yep. What else is in here?
Privacy settings. We talked about that. Okay.
Yeah, I think we did everything in our list. Oh, no, except for the Windows 7 activation thing, right?
Oh, yeah. So somebody just asked me this via email. And actually, to their credit, they did some nice research to look into what Microsoft has said about this officially and what's going on and blah, blah, blah. And so basically, this is a topic that's come up again and again for us. Back in 2015, Microsoft obviously had a free upgrade period for Windows 7 and Windows 8 users to go to Windows 10, and then that expired. And there was the ability if you had a retail product key, that was the description, meaning you bought a retail package version of Windows 7 or Windows 8, and you had that product key through, I think the date was July 30th or 30, whatever the last day, July is 2016. Yeah. Through that time period, you were going to be able to use that key to activate a new version of Windows 10.
That's fantastic.
That's never stopped working. So here we are, 3 years later.
It has never stopped working.
It still works. I test it all the time. It still works fine.
I
have heard from.
Let's not tell anybody this.
No, well, what's the problem? I mean, so if
I don't want them to stop it. They're gonna. Chris Capicella's listening.
No, there's nothing wrong with this. This is the thing.
It's okay.
You went to a store, you bought a copy of Windows, you never installed it. It's 2019 now. You want to install it.
If you never activated it.
Yeah, it's not activated. I mean, technically speaking, if it was activated, you probably could get it to work.
You can.
Yeah, you probably could.
Yep.
You might have to phone activate it, but Microsoft is very generous with that kind of thing. But here's the problem. There are people that want to do this, but they're worried because they've been on the internet. And the internet is like when you go online and you're like, I have a weird bump on my skin, and you find out what you have is cancer when in fact what you have is a zit.
Right.
And there's always this like really
every spider on the internet is a brown recluse.
It's poisonous.
Every spider.
Watch out! It's going to to your ear.
It could have an hourglass on its black body. That's a brown recluse.
You're
dead.
Yep. So there are people online spreading misinformation that Microsoft's going to turn this off. They're going to find out that this happened, and they're going to reverse this, and they're not going to, they're going to reverse your activation. And
that's what I
people
fear.
are getting nervous about it. No, Microsoft is never going to do this. Microsoft's got big fish to fry. They don't worry about.
Can I tell you? Okay, want me to tell you? Because I've been asking around why they left the loophole open, right? And
because who cares?
They won't acknowledge it.
I have a.
So if I have a Windows PC right now running Windows 7, I have the key. It's on the bottom.
I wouldn't say it that way. So here's the thing. So here's the problem. I have heard from some people that an OEM key, which is what you're referring to, does work. This is something I have never tested. I can't confirm. And the problem with it is, unlike a retail key, it's hard to make a broad statement about an OEM product key.
Yeah, that's true.
Every OEM has every PC maker has different key sets and blah blah whatever. I can't say to people that this will work. However, if you have a retail product key, there's no reason not to try it. That's one thing.
And I did go out and buy Windows 7 10 years ago, I think, for a VM on my Mac. So I have a key.
That one will work. It will work.
And I can make that Windows 10.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt, Mary Jo, but I just...
No, so I want to hear your theory, why you think it still works.
My theory is because such a tiny percentage of the population will ever do this. The ultimate goal is to get as many people on Windows 10 as possible. Who cares? It doesn't hurt anybody to do this.
I agree.
This is not piracy. This is someone purchased a retail product key. They want to run Windows. There's nothing wrong with this.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, there is nothing wrong with it.
Microsoft's not going to announce it. They're not going to publicize it, but they're not going to stop it.
Oh, sorry. That was the other part of my theory. I believe that they can't come out publicly and say, hey, guys, by the way, we're going to allow you to do this. I'm sure there are all kinds of legal mumbo-jumbo reasons why they're not going to ever say that. There's also, they're just never going to turn it off. Why would they?
Yep. So I believe your theory is very much correct. The way I had it explained to me by one of my contacts was, so this is all about accounting. Okay. When Microsoft first started talking about Windows 10 being free, they counted for every existing version of Windows 10 getting upgraded. So if they pull this suddenly, they're going to have to go back and redo their accounting. Like that's how crazy it is, right? So I think they're never going to undo this. And I think you're right.
To Terry Myerson math?
Yes, maybe. So yeah, I think they're never going to undo this. I think it's going to stay an open loophole. I don't think you're going to get in trouble if you use it. I don't think they're going to ever revoke it.
Interesting.
I won't say never, but I will say I feel very safe recommending to people who have a product key from Windows 7 that you should.
I do this all the time. I still have many product keys I keep
and it works.
It's great. Yeah.
The thing to understand, like, look, this computer probably doesn't have this key, but let me just look at it real quick. There's where am I going to find it? God, like I know where it is.
And of course, the minute we say this, I get an email from someone. My Windows 8 key no longer works.
Didn't work for me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But there's no harm to trying.
Try it. Just try it. Right.
And you want Windows. So the reason I'm really intrigued in this is because I have a lot of listeners on the radio show who, interestingly, are well aware of the end of life of Windows 7 in January.
I'm actually fascinated to hear that.
I am too. Yeah. I didn't. I mean, but somehow it's come to their attention that Windows 7 will no longer get support, and they're saying, "What do I have to go out and buy Windows 10?"
Yeah. Here's the problem, though. Those people probably got Windows 7 with a computer. And I cannot tell you that will work, right? So you can use utility to find out what the original product key was. Maybe you have it on a sticker. Can that be used to activate Windows 10 on the same computer, on a different computer? I can't say yes to that. I can't. I just don't know.
We can't promise.
I won't say it definitively, but what I could say to these people is, hey, here's an interesting loophole Microsoft has allowed. It's very likely or very possible that your Windows 7 serial number
it's possible
that you have the activation key might work to upgrade to 10.
You have to differentiate between retail product keys, which are actually pretty rare, and OEM product keys, which are actually very common. Right.
Of course, the downside to this is then that means so they go out, they download Windows 10, the media creation tool, and they make a USB key and they install it, and they have their serial number and it doesn't work.
Yep. So if they're going to do that on the same computer, which would probably be the best result if it was an OEM.
Well, that's what the question is. I have a Windows 7 PC. I don't want to buy a new PC. I don't want to spend $90 on Windows 10, which is what I've been saying.
Listen, the thing I'm about to describe is worse than spending $90. So what you would have to do is do a full system image backup of that Windows 7 PC onto an external drive. You'd have to blow the thing away and trust that you're going to be able to get it back. You need to have the recovery disk. You can boot the computer. You want to make sure that stuff works before you actually do this other process. Yeah, just buy Windows 10. You know, at this point, I mean, seriously, like just buy Windows 10. But there's other issues here, right, that are unrelated to the product key. Like, let's pretend that this OEM product key that they got from some Dell computer or whatever it might be does activate. It's fine, right? The other issue might be that computer isn't certified for Windows 10 because of some chipset version that's out of date or whatever compared to what they support in Windows 10. So you could get into a situation where you actually bring this thing up after all that work, and it would activate maybe or did activate, but it's still not going to work because you have an unsupported chipset, whatever it is. So for normal people, this is not a great tip. You know, most normal people don't have a copy of a Windows 7 or whatever product key sitting in a box from some install media that they bought for some reason back in the day. I don't know. This is more for technical people who. Okay. I mean, I went out to stores, you know, different versions of Windows. I bought Windows in a store. Like, I mean, who does that? That's, like, like this is a weird thing to do, but I don't know.
Okay. That's good, though. It's interesting that it's still out there.
It is. Yep. Yeah. Yep. And, you know, back in the day, back in 2016, I remember at the time, like, okay, here we go. This is going to stop working. You know, we're going to, and, you know, me being me, I'm going to test this like every day, every week. And after a while, I was like, what's going on here? It was like 3 months later, we're still working. A year later, we're still working. 2 later, you know, I do this all the time. And it still works.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
We talked about Hyper-V Server 2019?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so before we go on and talk about Credge and Office and Xbox and whatever else is on your mind, let me talk a little bit about our sponsor of the hour, which happens to be Microsoft. But a particular Microsoft podcast, the Intra Zone. It is a bi-weekly conversation and interview about SharePoint, OneDrive, and related tech within Microsoft 365. I know a lot of you are very interested in Microsoft 365. A lot of you use it at home and at the office. So if you're interested in we use SharePoint like crazy here. In fact, we're using it right now with OneNote. If you're interested and you want to get the most out of SharePoint and learn how it works for you, the IntraZone podcast is awesome. News and announcements every week or every other week. A focused topic of the week. You get guest perspectives from various experts. A partner highlight, where they're going to feature a partner from the strong ecosystem of SharePoint and Microsoft 365. Frequently asked questions roundtable. It's really it's very informative, but it's also really a great listen. That's one of the things makes, to me, podcasts are so great. They're a way to learn kind of almost painlessly. So as you're driving into work, listen to the IntraZone. Upcoming events, conferences, workshops. It's a show about SharePoint, not a show about nothing. A show about your bi-weekly conversation interview podcast hosted by the SharePoint team, and that makes it even more useful and desirable. It's a quick listen. It's not going to take up all day. And there's some really great stuff in it. You'll learn how to easily share and manage content, empower teamwork throughout your organization with the technology you're using right now. Be sure to check out the latest episodes from the recent SharePoint conference. I'm just looking. They have the Essential SharePoint Toolkit. Does SharePoint bring you joy? I love this. This is a panel, actually, that discusses.
If it does, seriously.
Yes. It's the Marie Kondo method. There's the SharePoint bring you joy. Yes, it does. It discusses the evolution of SharePoint, key announcements from the SharePoint conference, broad use adoption of Microsoft 365, and a whole lot more. And they also offer a transcript. There's also Jeff Tieper Unplugged. You're going to hear how SharePoint is turbocharging user experiences. Tieper is a CVP of Microsoft Office. And the importance of design, a meaningful segment on diversity and inclusion in the workplace. There's lots of great stuff in here. There's an accessibility episode. I think they've really done a great job with this, and I want to give them a little plug. Check out the Intrazone, INTRAZONE. It's at aka.ms/the Intrazone. Actually, it's hosted on Libsyn, which is great. You can subscribe to the Intrazone wherever you listen to podcasts because it's on Libsyn. Every podcast application will have it. The Intrazone, THEINTRA, Intrazone. What a great show, and thank you, Intrazone, for thinking of Windows Weekly to help tell the world about yours. Back to Paul and Mary Jo and the topic of the hour,
Jeff Teeper.
With Jeff Teeper.
So actually, coincidentally, Mary Jo and I both separately interviewed Jeff Teeper last week.
Oh, neat.
We did. In D.C., yeah.
The father of SharePoint.
Is he the father?
He is.
He invented it?
He's credited as the father. I don't know if it's correct to say he alone invented SharePoint, but he definitely was instrumental in bringing it to be the product that it is today.
So they have a whole hour or 46-minute interview with him. So that's great.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
A smart guy.
Yep.
Smart guy, too.
Yep.
But no, I was thinking of something much more important.
Yeah,
Credge.
Yeah.
So
I like how Paul's calling it in the notes now the new Microsoft Edge, but not Credge.
And I like how you somehow still got Credge in there somehow.
I did. I added it in.
We love Credge. The new Microsoft Edge. Is that the official moniker?
No.
They're just calling it Microsoft Edge.
Yeah.
I feel the need to differentiate it from the classic
It's
version.
still in pre-release, right? You don't.
Yeah. So I didn't link to 2 of the 3 items for some reason. Sorry about that. But I was interested to see this past week that there were 3 Google Chrome stories that are going to impact the new Edge, as I'm calling it, the next Edge. And they are a new PWA install experience, which is long overdue. And I think that's really cool.
Just
controversial.
to gloss that, the reason it's going in Edge is because it's based on Chrome. So when you see something like Chrome 76 to include this, typically,
you can,
not always, but typically you would see this in Edge as well.
That's right. Like this one, I expect this one should be in. This will be an Edge. I think it's fair to say this will be an Edge. Google controversially is making changes to. Actually, it's not to ad blocking. It's to the manifest technology in the browser, which is going to impact extensions. In particular, those extensions that block ads. And so there's been a lot of back and forth over that, but they're apparently going to go.
Some Chromium subscribers like Opera and Brave say we're not going to implement that.
Oh,
does Microsoft say?
Okay.
Yeah.
They haven't said. So we'll see. It's a good question. I mean, right now, I load a Google Chrome Store, Chrome Web Store extension for ad blocking into the new Edge. That may have to change in the future. I don't know.
Gore Hill says his program uBlock Origin, which is the one most of us use, will not work with these API changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if you're using uBlock Origin in Edge, which you can in the Chromium version of Edge, which you can right now,
well,
you'll know because it'll stop working.
They don't have to worry because Google says it's working with the community, so let's not worry about it.
Yeah.
They basically, it's funny because this came up, I think, back in February, and Google said, guys, relax, we're going to work with the community. And then they came back 3 months later and said, yeah, we're still going to do it.
They changed some stuff, but they didn't.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they changed.
It's still going to break everything, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem. So, look, Google's point here is that it's more secure, et cetera, et cetera. And so, also, by the way, this might be a little bit of marketing to take you guys' cynical tone toward Google. I mean, they basically said this is about user privacy. The problem is that the user is given carte blanche access to their data to these extension makers, and that shouldn't happen, and blah, blah, whatever. So I don't know what the truth is. I just know it's changing. So will that impact Edge? I do not know. I guess we'll wait.
Yeah,
and see.
they've been wishy-washy about it. Even in their Reddit AMA, they did. It was kind of like you couldn't really get a like.
Don't know.
That,
right?
Maybe they don't know, but they also just are not really saying it clearly what they intend to do.
Yeah, I don't think you can say yet. I think they need to evaluate it, see how it impacts things. We'll see. I think the route that the other Chromium-based browsers are taking is not what Microsoft wants to do, right? I think what they want to do is use Chromium as much as possible and not go down their own route for as much as possible, but maybe this becomes a thing that they have to do. So we'll see. We do know, by the way, that, and they announced this at Build, that they're going to go beyond what Google does for tracking and so forth. And so I don't know, maybe this will fall into the same bucket and they'll have to do their own thing. I don't know. Because ad blocking, in a way, is related to anti-tracking, right? I mean, a lot of ads are used for this kind of thing. So we'll see. The third one I didn't link to for some reason, sorry, is apparently I think it's Chrome 77 in this case. So that might be a version that's not coming out until September or whatever, is going to formally support themes. Google a couple of months ago, remember, had come out with some themes in the store that you could install into Chrome. And I haven't actually tried those with Edge. I wonder if those will work. I'm not really sure. But they're going to formally support browser theming for the first time, how 1990s of them. In Chrome 77. And I would imagine that's the type of capability you'd want to bring to Edge as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that show up too. And now Mary Jo has some Credge news.
I do. It's not a Windows Weekly episode without saying Credge at least once.
Everybody drink.
I love it. I just love it. This one is really interesting to me.
Yeah, during the Reddit AMA that the Edge team did last week, they were asked explicitly, are they going to bring Credge to Linux? And Kyle Flug, I believe is how you pronounce his name, said, not yet. It is something we'd like to do eventually. Our build system runs on Linux, but we're taking things one step at a time, starting from Windows 10. So we cannot commit to Linux just yet.
So I talked to them at Build, and they said, absolutely, in the future, this is happening.
I would assume it is too. Yep. Yeah.
I find it interesting.
There's no reason not to do it. It's
their
easy.
build system runs on Linux is an interesting statement right there.
Right. And I still hear from readers a lot who don't know this, but Credge is going to be on Windows 7 also. Yay. It's not out officially in preview form yet, but it is. Microsoft has announced it is happening. It's coming to 7 and 8.1, I believe.
This is great news.
That's right.
That's great news.
Yep.
Credge everywhere.
Credge it up.
Credge it up. Credge it up. Let's do some Office.
Yep.
Mary Jo.
So how about PowerPoint?
How about it?
Let's talk about PowerPoint. Microsoft a few years ago introduced this feature called Designer to PowerPoint, which is basically supposed to help you build slides with fewer tiers. Is how I would describe it. They actually will suggest slides for you. If you type some words into a blank canvas, it'll say, oh, what if you use this or that? Or if you have a photo, it'll give you suggestions for how to position the photo and all. So this week, they announced they're making even more updates to PowerPoint Designer. They're going to be adding themes, branded templates, which is really big for the enterprise, because a lot of times if you're doing a presentation, they'll say, hey, could you use our template for your presentation? So designers getting support for that. And they're adding the perspectives feature that they introduced as part of Bing, I believe, which is if you have a slide that says, this distance is 1,500 miles, the designer feature will suggest to you could say about half the distance across the United States to give people a better perspective on what a big number like that means. The most interesting thing, though, is they're adding a coach to PowerPoint. This is a new feature that's going to first start with PowerPoint on the web, and it's called Presenter Coach. What it is you can do a dry rehearsal, run through your presentations, speaking the presentation at the pace you would intend to when you make the final presentation, and little hints and tips will pop up while you're doing this
thing. Style
kind of like not as annoying as Clippy, but things like, hey, your pacing could be a little different. Your word choice, saying guys might not be the best use here. You might want to say people.
You're terrible at this. You should write instead.
Exactly. You know what? You shouldn't even present ever. I probably would get that one. But and at the end, it gives you a report and it says, here's our summary of things we think you could do to make your presentation better. I'm really interested to see how this works. It'd be really cool for kids learning how to do presentations, but anybody. I'm a terrible presenter. I admit it. And I feel like if I rehearsed more, I would get better. But rehearsing just when you're standing in front of a mirror doing a PowerPoint is terrible. And it would be kind of nice to have something like this if it actually does work well. at your disposal. One thing I should mention, if you're using standalone PowerPoint, not PowerPoint for the web or not PowerPoint that's part of Office 365, you won't get this feature. So if you're using like PowerPoint 2019 or 2016, it's not going to come to the perpetual version, as they call it.
No presenter for you.
Yes.
Is that an impression of the soup Nazi? I'm just...
Let's say no.
Okay. And would you use an Office key on your keyboard as opposed to the Windows key?
In addition to the Windows key.
No, let's not. Keyboard is not.
So actually, let me ask
expansible.
about this, because I guess I misunderstood what the point of this was when I first saw this. So Walking Cat uncovered this, I guess.
Yeah.
Was your impression of this was that if you look at a Windows keyboard, there's a Windows key on the left of the spacebar, and on the right there's a kind of a right-click type of icon. It's the idea is you're selecting things with a keyboard.
There's a menu key. I always think of that.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it would replace that key. Is that right?
The way that photo shows it is to the right of the Alt key. So yeah, it would replace it if you're using a Microsoft keyboard.
So what would it do? What's the point?
Walking Cat says if you held down the Office key and then you used shortcuts like T, W, X, P, D, N, Y, and L, which go with PowerPoint, Yammer, blah blah blah.
Okay.
All the
so
apps.
can I ask the audience if they can quickly ascertain the problem with this scheme? All of the keys that are modifiers for keyboard shortcuts are on the left. This one's on the right.
Right.
Right. So if you're going to use Control or Windows or Alt or Shift, those things are all on the left.
You have to take your hands
really
off
awkward.
the keyboard.
It's a really awkward, different style of. I don't think this makes any sense.
I think they were doing a survey asking people if they thought this would be useful.
You know what? They're pushing Windows off my keyboard, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, and Brad.
Pretty soon the start button's going to be gone.
Brad says there's even a code name for the keyboards that may get this.
Is it called futility?
No. Hallgate low, Hallgate mid.
Oh, these are for the actual keyboards.
Right, for the keyboards themselves.
So Microsoft has in the past sold Office keyboards, right?
Right.
Not too many of them. In fact, I don't think they ever really went anywhere. But I honestly, what would make a little more sense is that some top row of keys that had Office-specific functions, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't. The keyboard I think you'd call it a modifier, I guess. Mm-hmm. The first key of a keyboard shortcut.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense for that to be on the right. I don't like change, Mary Jo.
Well,
I know that very well about
you. You have both hands on the keyboard.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be awkward because
that does those things.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. Like it would it's kind of hard to undo your patterns of using a keyboard, especially if you're a touch.
You're asking me to play a guitar left-handed. I'm telling you, it's not happening.
Okay.
Is that menu key? Do a lot of keyboards still have that menu key? It's not on my.
I have it. I've never used it in my
everywhere.
life.
My Surface Go doesn't have it.
Oh, really?
My Lenovo doesn't have it.
I have it everywhere. Like I have a third part, like a HP external keyboard for a desktop computer. It has it. I
remember having it. I didn't realize they still were doing that.
I don't think you see it anymore. It's the key no one uses.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's like
New
caps
build
lock.
clacks on. Doot, doot, doot. New build just hit out.
All right, we're gonna end the podcast.
No, that's
Here
wrong.
we go.
That's
nice.
wrong.
Your new build is ready.
There you go.
Fast string 20H1 build 18922. It's coming out.
It was quite a
There were a lot of klaxons there.
Yep. It's you're going to be so disappointed when you find out what's new.
I know, nothing much. Yep. Language setting improvements.
If a tree falls in the woods and there are no new features, did the tree fall in the woods?
How about this? There's a new build in town.
I think for this build, what you're looking for is sad trumpet.wave or that balloon deflating sound. Yeah.
There you go.
There's a new
We
build
waited all
in
day
town.
for this.
Not a lot.
That's the new
taken
build
them so
sound.
long to ship this product. Look at all these new features.
But you know what? If we're right about 19H2 and they're not going to backport a lot of things from 20H1, this kind of makes sense, right?
What if they're really jerking us around and this is 19H2?
No.
What if?
They would never do that.
No.
Yeah, they would, but I don't think it's true.
Paul is unusually excited about this next story.
What?
Is it gaming? Is this
No,
gaming?
Microsoft To Do.
Yeah,
right.
is now in the Mac App Store. That's pretty much the whole story right there. So
Okay.
Wunderlist was the previous version of this product. This was available on mobile and in the Mac. In the Mac. Microsoft To Do, when it first shipped, was on Windows. It was on the web, which is how Mac users have accessed it. It's been on mobile. Now it's in the Mac App Store. How fun. I don't know. That's the whole story.
I know you love all that Wunder stuff.
Do
I
you
don't
use
actually-
it? I forget.
I don't-
You don't use
Yeah,
I feel
To
like
Do.
I don't.
there are so many
But I
to-do
like the
lists.
idea of-
So many to-do list programs.
Yeah.
Like
I just
hundreds.
use Calendar. I think we talked about this, right? I think Mary Jo does too.
Yeah, just put
I
your
use
reminders in your
I use my
calendar.
calendar.
Yeah.
I'm old. I'm not switching to Slack, Leo. I'm using Calendar. I don't want to hear it.
It does everything I'd ever wanted to do.
And get off my lawn,
Yep.
you Slack using hippie.
Calendar is like Emacs. It's a great operating system. The only thing lacking is a calendar.
Right. Well, I'm pretty sure you could write one. Don't you? How do you extend Emacs? Isn't it?
There is an Emacs calendar.
I'll talk something
hell
like
yeah. You can ask Emacs for moon phases, and it will do an ASCII picture of moon phases.
So it is exactly like Outlook then, because Outlook does the same thing.
Yeah.
I happen to be an Emacs fan, but I feel like I was just reading a book. Harley Hahn has an Emacs book, and he says, if you
Harley
like,
Hahn, wait a minute, hold on.
Yes.
Harley. Why do I know that?
that Harley Hahn, he's written.
Who is Harley Hahn?
He's like a
No, I know
self-published
this name.
guru. He's written 1 million books.
Okay.
And actually, his Emacs book is very good. But one of the things he says in it is, if you like Emacs, you also should like reincarnation because it takes more than one lifetime to learn.
Harley Hahn.
You know that name. You've seen
From
it on
Unix.
1
He's like
million
the-
books.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's why. I probably have owned an Emacs book of his.
I think that I was shocked, to be honest, that he had an Emacs book because most of his stuff is like, 15 ways to use Windows 10 and stuff like that.
Back in the okay. So he wrote some Peter Norton stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually does have a lot of Unix books. But I was
He
reading,
did a Peter Norton's Guide to Unix.
Yeah, he's got some Unix books.
I bet I owned his Peter Norton Guide to either DOS or the IBM PC.
Yeah. You definitely did.
I definitely did. That's
Yeah.
why I know the name.
Yeah, he's like you can see. I can see the script on the book cover, right?
This
Harley
is what old is. You wrote a book called How to Write Beautiful Assembly Language Programs.
Uh-huh.
Wait for it. For the IBM System 360. Yikes. In 1978.
No, he's been around forever. This is my favorite one. Harley Hahn teaches the internet.
Yep.
And for
Oh,
some
the
reason,
Internet Yellow Pages. That's good stuff.
Yeah, remember that?
You could fit it in a book.
For some reason, he's holding. I don't know what kind of animal that is. Is it a giant cat?
It looks. Is it a lemur? What am I looking at
I
there?
don't even.
It's a sloth.
It's something.
What is this? This is like a GeoCities website. What is this thing?
This is learn from the best.
This thing is hard coded to work at 640 by 480.
Yeah. It's Harley Hahn teaches the internet. More than 2 million Harley Hahn books sold. So, Paul, how many
By the
books
way,
have
that
you
guy
sold?
hasn't. You got to go to his website. He's got a new picture of him and the cat, and they don't look anything alike anymore. Either
you're
one
kidding.
of them.
Oh, they're growing apart.
You got to go to harleyhahn.com or whatever.
Oh my God, it's a new one. It's a black cat now.
That's what I'm saying. Look at that
So
thing.
it's a brand new cat.
This is his GeoCities site.
It's a big cat.
That's a big.
It's reined in the hair. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that he has a section of his site called Quotable Women.
Oh dear. I do want to say though, and I don't want to dismiss him because
He's probably rich.
he's sold many more books than either you or I or both of us combined.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that's true. Yeah.
And his Emacs book is pretty darn good. And
I bet it is.
It's only a couple of years old. Like, who's writing Emacs books in 2016? Only a guy with a giant cat.
Yep.
If he wrote the book in Emacs, I'd be impressed.
Oh, I'm sure he did. Harley Hahn's Emacs. You may not like the name of this.
Oh, what's going on?
Field guide.
You bastard. Ooh. You bastard.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Who had it first?
That did it, Harley.
That did it. Harley, you're a dead
Take back
man.
everything I ever said about you and your 640 by 480 website. You dinosaur.
I have created a new rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's cheer Paul up. Let's talk about Xbox.
Okay.
I'm sorry I bought that book, Paul. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm a little thrown, but I'm gonna recover from this.
Okay, please.
I'm going to do the Xbox stuff a little bit out of order. So yesterday, Microsoft released the first of what they're calling Eyes First games. There are 4 of them. You can actually play them with a keyboard and mouse if you want to, but they're designed for the eye tracking technology that's built into the latest version of Windows 10.
Oh, that's
so people who have
awesome.
physical disabilities can play these games as well, and that's cool. That's nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they're all basically like puzzle type games,
slide things. And I think it'd be really good just to download this and experience what it's like to use eye control. I think this is cool. That's really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that's nice. And then Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass every month, right at the beginning of the month, they announce here's what's new this month, and the last several months, what they've been doing is they've been describing games that were coming out basically through the middle of the month. And then lately, they've been in the middle of the month saying, oh, by the way, here's some more games for Xbox Game Pass. So they just did that today. This month was actually a little light. There was only 4 new games. Usually you get 7, 8, 10, somewhere in there. But what's interesting about it is 2 of the games are for Game Pass for PC. Oh. And 1 of the games is only for PC.
Ooh.
Yeah, so all of them work with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, if you have that, the Uber subscription. 3 of the games work with Xbox Game Pass for console, and 2 work for Xbox Game Pass for PC.
I have always wanted Goat Simulator on my PC. This is very good news. I love Goat. Yeah. If you have not played Goat Simulator, you
haven't lived.
Oh, you haven't lived. Mary Jo would love Goat Simulator.
It's almost as good as killing Nazi zombies in Call of Duty.
You play a goat, Mary Jo, and you just have fun. You just do what. There's really no point in the game. You just do what goats would do, including bowling people over, eating anything in sight, and climbing as high as you can.
And being incredibly hard to eat because of their stupid small bones.
Yeah. What? Paul, do you want to share
you ever
something?
try to eat goat meat? It's riddled with bones.
No.
Leo. It's really hard to
I have not.
I know. That's the only reason they're still alive. They're too hard to eat.
I think you should write Paul Thurrot's Field Guide to Goats.
No, it would be a field guide to farm animals. It would be goats would just be one chapter.
Oh, chapter 1, goats.
Goats. Goats is good eating, but
the only time I ever had goat meat, there seemed to be no bones in it. It was a goat stew that I had in the Caribbean.
Oh, right.
Well, they're not going to put the bones in the stew, Leo. That would kill your teeth. Obviously, someone has done the hard work.
The hard work of getting.
It's like when you eat a crab, right? You get this big crab, and when you whittle it down to the meat, there's like a teaspoon of it.
A little bit. But it's good. And that's why I only eat crab Louie, because I let somebody else do the hard work.
Right. So the goat you had was like that. It was the crab Louie
of goats. Goats too. Our captain brought on. We had chartered a sailboat, a catamaran, and I wasn't going to sail it. So we hired a captain whose name was Jelly Belly. He said, "You could call me Jelly for short." And at one point, Jelly, who apparently had a girlfriend in literally every port, because every island we go to, that's my girlfriend.
Nice.
And one of his girlfriends gave him some goat stew, which apparently needs no refrigeration. I didn't know this, but it was good for days without any refrigeration.
Goat meat is fantastic, but like I said,
it's the soft shell crab of goats.
It doesn't sound like it makes sense, but that actually makes tons of sense.
Yeah. Let's,
which is worse, an Xbox pick of the week or a goat tip of the week? I don't know.
Why can't it be both?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It can be both.
Wait a minute. Harley Hunt has already written a field guide to goats. I'm sorry.
Of course he has.
Of course he has.
Right.
2
also
million
to
sold.
lemurs.
Lemurs and large
barnyard animals with freaky, devilish eyes.
That's why I know his name, though. It's the Internet Yellow Pages. That was a big hit.
Yep.
Yeah. Back when you could like have a book
Back before you could actually just search.
that had every website in the book.
Now it just says go to google.com.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a short book.
Yeah.
This was 1997 when it came out. That was the fifth edition. Fifth edition.
He might have been supplanted by Yahoo, right? I mean, Yahoo basically did that on.
Yeah, way back when. Yeah. Our show today
It's brought to you by
brought
Goats.
to you by Goats. Brought to you by Atlassian. If you're an IT professional, actually, I bet you everybody listening to this show knows the name Atlassian. Atlassian and Jira. Now you know who I'm talking about. Jira, of course, is the ultimate agile project manager, kind of, right? Our IT team uses it, though. IT teams these days are at the center of the universe with this cloud-based world we're in, not just in TWIT, but everywhere. IT teams rule the roost. If you want to stay competitive in an increasingly cloud-based world, it's your IT team that has to plan, has to execute, and they have to do it faster and better than ever. And the most important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is they've got to communicate and collaborate better than ever. Collaborate with one another, communicate with me and the other stakeholders, colleagues, clients, the boss. Incidents are complex, so you need open, agile, and smart coordinations between ops and software dev teams. The expectations are high, the stakes are high, and it's IT that's smack dab at the center. Falling short inside of a business-critical workflow is just not an option. That's why the best IT teams use Atlassian to collaborate, to get work done. And Atlassian, the company behind Jira's software tools, are designed to manage complex collaboration and communication, because that's really what it's all about. And it's not just for developers. I think that's the problem, is that sometimes people say, oh yeah, Agile, that's development. No. Atlassian has an affordable, reliable suite of tools for teams of all kinds, all sizes, from DevOps to Agile to IT apps to Ops to ITSM and whatever's next for your organization. That's the other thing. It will grow with you as you need it. Atlassian provides a technology backbone to help modern IT organizations plan, service, and support exactly the kind of change that propels business forward. There's Jira. We also use Confluence. That's where we document everything. We originally had our own kind of system, Rosie, the repository of, I can't remember what Rosie, the acronym, stood for. But once we found Confluence and we started using Jira, we moved everything over to Confluence. That's where we document workflow changes, what's going on, to pass along to the next generation of TWIT IT folks how things are set up so they understand and they can move forward. If you have a code base, you got to have Bitbucket. The thing is that Atlassian's growing all the time. They're always acquiring new tools, integrating them into the framework, and that's what's so cool about Atlassian. No matter what your team's needs are, you can choose tools that are right for your current framework, but trust that as you grow, Atlassian will grow with you. And because it all integrates seamlessly, your team doesn't have to jump from platform to platform. It's just natural. It's a natural flow. Flow is important to getting the job done right and efficiently and communicating and collaborating. That's what Atlassian gives you. It gives you flow. The tools for your IT team are easy and free to try. Yep. Head to Atlassian.com/teams/IT and find the Atlassian offerings right for your team. That's Atlassian.com/teams/IT. Try Atlassian today to see what IT can be. We are a proud Atlassian house. Now let's go to the back of the book. Paul Thurrott, it's your turn for the tip of the week.
In keeping with my need to needle Mary Jo as much as possible, my tip and my pick are both game-related. Sorry. I just mentioned the Xbox Game Pass on that last story. And one of the other things that is new to this month, this most recent Xbox Game Pass announcement, is that Microsoft actually finally documented the games that are disappearing from Game Pass at the end of the month. This is something I don't think they've ever done before, but this is actually an important point because the number of games in Xbox Game Pass fluctuates, but it doesn't just keep going up. So it hasn't gone from 100 to 120 to 150 to 200 or whatever. It's over 100, like it's always over 100. And I think the reason is that they're pulling games out as well as putting games in. And so I was talking to Brad about this earlier today, and I think he was saying, the theory was maybe that the games can use this as a promotional tool. Put it in Game Pass for 60 days or 90 days or whatever it is. See how that kind of goes. And if people get hooked on the game, they might want to pay for it and keep playing it. And actually, that's that's kind of a good idea. Yeah, if that's what it is, it's a neat idea. But here's the tip. With Microsoft now finally telling us when games are leaving, you will know ahead of time. So in other words, you're not going to wake up on July 1st and be like, hey, what happened to this game I've been playing? If you know ahead of time that a game is going away from Xbox Game Pass, you can buy it while you're an Xbox Game Pass subscriber for 20% off.
Oh.
So while the game is there, is part of the service, at that point, if you buy it, you save 20%. So if you know you're going to want to play this thing past whatever the date is, you should buy it while it's still in the service. So it's kind of an interesting tip. Hopefully they keep doing this. I'll keep documenting it as they do, if they do. But now that Game Pass is expanded to the PC, I think they should do this. So that's good. That's good news that they're doing that. And then for the game pick, it's actually two different things. Last week, I think last week my pick was probably the Xbox app. This week I wanted to talk about two gaming services on the PC. I feel like everyone's heard of Steam, who plays games on the PC, but the more recent Epic Game Store to me is actually kind of a big development for a number of reasons. And of course, the Xbox Game Pass for PC as well, which works through the Xbox app. Those two apps are very similar. The Xbox app itself is obviously for subscription service, which you pay for monthly. The Epic Game Store is kind of a more traditional store where you pay for games as you go. But the reason you want to hook up with this is every week now, it used to be every month, but now every week, they actually give away a free game. I think the game this week is Enter the Gungeon, which is a fun combination of gun and dungeon. But why not look at it? I mean, the games are free. Like once you get them, they're yours. They're in your collection. So if you haven't done it, definitely check out the Epic Game Store. And then the Xbox Game Pass, because you're paying for it every month. You might want to just see what's available before you jump into that. But I have a feeling that that's going to evolve into something really special as well. So you should check both of those out.
Nice. Enterprise pick of the week, Mary Jo.
The Enterprise pick is a brand new Azure service called Azure Bastion. Did you know what a Bastion host is? I learned this week. It's a special purpose computer on networks designed specifically to withstand attacks.
Oh, cool.
So if you think about what is Azure Bastion service, here's how Mark Rusinovich described it in a phrase.
Like he knows anything.
It's a service for secure access of your off-internet VMs. So what it does is it gives you seamless RDP and SSH connectivity to your virtual machines over SSL. That's a lot of acronyms right there. So to explain it a little further, what it does is it lets you access your remote VMs without exposing your infrastructure to public IPs. That means
so it's like a fancy router.
Yeah, it's like here's another way someone described it: jump server as a service, right? So it's basically securing the way you access VMs because you're going through the Azure portal and connecting directly to your Azure virtual network instead of having to go out over the internet to access them.
Nice.
People are very excited about this. I've had people say, I was in the private preview, and this week it's the public preview, and it was the best private preview I've ever been in. Somebody else said, I as soon as I heard about this, I rushed out.
Did they serve
and
drinks? What are you talking about?
I don't know. People are so excited about this. It's like, wow, I guess this is a need. And so, yeah, if you're somebody who this sounds interesting to, just be warned, it's not free to use the public preview. It's 50% off what the eventual cost will be. It's still fairly inexpensive, but it's not free. You can find more information on the Azure site. Just look for Bastion and you will find it.
And before we get to the codename pick of the week, I just want to tell Paul that Harley Hahn's internet guide was nominated for a Pulitzer.
Oh, man, are you kidding?
It did not win, but it was nominated.
Wow.
So.
God, it's ludicrous.
I'm going to nominate the Windows 10 Field Guide.
We should, Mary Jo. Let's do that.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
Let's go all the way for a Nobel Prize.
Is there a
literature.
Sisyphean prize I could get for it, or some kind
I
of?
think you should. You definitely should get that.
Never-ending book.
Yeah.
Codename pick of the week.
So this isn't actually an acronym pick of the week.
I love it too.
We hear it all the time. You hear about Epic. Microsoft's talking about EPIC, right? Joe Belfiore's team is the Epic team, and we knew the E and the P stood for essential products. I only learned this week what the I and the C stand for. Inclusive community, which fits with the new Microsoft and Satya Nadella's mission and all that.
I just threw up in my mouth, by the way. Thanks,
Sorry.
Brian.
Epic is essential product, inclusive community. What does that encompass? It's a big team, right? It encompasses Windows 10, Edge, OneNote, mobility experiences for Android and iOS, so things like Launcher and Edge on those platforms, and MileIQ and all those kind of apps that are available from Microsoft for the phones, and Microsoft News. So that it's a lot of stuff you hear Microsoft call experiences. That's what Epic is. So if you ever hear about Epic, that's what it is.
It's Epic, baby.
Now you know.
Now, Mary Jo has very kindly assented to letting me pick the beer this week.
Yeah.
You going to drink it, though?
No, I don't drink beer.
Oh, I see.
Because I'm keto, like you, Paul.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll drink a rosé slushy. Like there's no
Thank
like
you.
it's going out of business.
You got to have standards.
But, man, I want to drink this. Mary Jo, I know you know Hen House Brewing Company.
I've heard of them. I don't know if
They're
I've had a
across the street.
Okay.
It's funny when Lagunitas is right there. It's next door, and then they sprung up across the street. The Hen House Brewing Company is
Like when you have a Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks across the street from each other.
Yeah, and Hen House actually makes some great saisons, makes some
Nice.
excellent brews. But I thought you'd enjoy this one. It's called Keanu is Immortal.
Oh, that's
Jeez.
perfect.
It's an IPA.
Oh, boy.
Sorry, Paul. And it features images of Keanu Reeves and some of his best.
Yeah,
John,
like over time.
Yeah, that's Bill and Ted.
Yep.
That's the Matrix, I think. Somewhere there's going to be a Wick. Maybe that's a John Wick. And
Yeah,
then-
it looks like John Wick.
Yeah, I don't
Actually,
know.
the Matrix isn't even there.
No.
That's kind of funny.
Who's that? It's like
I don't even know. No, I
it's
don't
like
know.
a chess king. There's a guy with a bunny. I don't know.
But we should say why this is a perfect pick.
Why is it a perfect pick?
Because of last week's episode of Windows
Yes,
Weekly.
in which
right?
Paul and I got in a lot of trouble for saying Keanu. I
Overrated.
said Keanu was a B-list celebrity,
Yeah.
and we both
Yeah.
said John Wick. But
But you know what? This does tie into what I did say about his appearance in the video game, which is this is good for Keanu fans because they're going to get the Keanu they liked, the one from 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Because in a
And
video
I'm
game, you can
excited.
be any age,
yeah.
I'm excited looking this up. It's an IPA also.
Yes.
An American IPA,
I
6.8%.
thought you'd like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance to get any, I think Hen House makes some really good. I particularly like their saisons.
It has a very good score on Beer Advocate, 4
yeah.
out of 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Breathtaking, says Andrew M.
Oh, come on. Fake.
It's got a cool, crisp flavor. You'll just remind you of getting it's like a sharp pencil
Paul
in the neck.
T. Who's this? Look, there's like people impersonating
That's
me
you.
now. And
That's you. I know. You're a secret IPA drinker, just like I'm a secret gamer.
right. That would be amazing. Paul Thurrott was caught drinking an IPA behind the stands of the high school, football game.
I have been informed that is Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor, and he is considered to be like Keanu because he is Keanu. Keanu was Charlemagne because Keanu is immortal. So this was an earlier life? Is that what it is? Karsten is explaining.
Keanu is immortal. He's been alive.
He's like Outlander. He's like, okay. Now Highlander? Now who's this?
I don't know who that is.
It looks like Keanu,
It's
and he's got a bunny. Maybe it's Merlin.
maybe.
And then there's
These
got
are like obscure roles or something.
no. Well, he never played Charlemagne. It's an in joke. But then there's the Matrix letters dropping down on the can, and there's a chicken in a Matrix coat on the front, or is that a rooster? It's the hen in Hen House. Yeah. There you go. I just thought I'd pass that along. I think I'm going to send Paul a case of this.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good job.
You get me.
Oh, maybe he was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Maybe he played Charlemagne.
Oh, that could be. Okay. That could be.
Maybe. I don't remember. Frankly, I've
Yeah,
blocked that movie out of my...
Uh,
Here we go.
yeah.
Here's some...
It was probably in the sequel.
As we all knew, the can says, Keanu is Awesome and known for living a simple life, giving away most of his earnings and being kind to strangers. Keanu possesses the kind of enlightenment it takes decades to achieve, or lifetimes, which begs the question, why does Keanu look so much like the paintings of French actor Paul Monet?
Wow.
Why do Keanu lookalikes show up in so many 15th century paintings? Why does Keanu look identical to the Albrecht Dürer engraving of Charlemagne, given that Charlemagne was a historical fiction?
I'm
Folks,
sorry.
just
Do they
drink the
believe
beer.
they've
Just drink it.
proven that time travel has happened? Is that what they're saying?
I believe Keanu is Immortal is made with Citra and Centennial hops. It is super important to us that every henhouse beer you drink is in perfect brewery fresh condition.
Wow.
They even have a Best By date right on the side there.
Just like Budweiser, like a little fresh logo thing.
Yeah,
Does it?
it's fresh
Does
beer.
it change color to let you know that it's fresh or
This
stale
beer
or
was
whatever?
canned and I can't even read the...
But it's Immortal. They shouldn't have to be fresh.
Yeah. And I've ruined this beer because it's been out of the fridge the whole show.
Yeah.
So those of you who wrote to me and Paul saying we little appreciated the Keanu Reeves oeuvre.
Honestly, first of all, the John Wick movies, I like on some level. They're just ridiculous is all. That's fine. I like movies like that.
Yeah.
But this guy has actually he was in Point Break. Point Break is one of the greatest movies ever made, period. And also, by the way, the first Matrix movie, are you kidding me?
Great movie.
Yeah. You can't take that away from him.
In the end, there can be only one Keanu. And that concludes this edition of... That's going too far? Okay. Of Windows Weekly. I took the blue pill. Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. You'll find the field guide to Windows 10 at leanpub.com. Don't you mess with the field guide, man. Mary Jo Foley is all about Microsoft.com, her ZDNet blog. Together, they get together each and every Wednesday right around 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC. If you want to watch the show live, you can go to twit.tv/live. And if you want to download a copy of the show, audio or video, you go to twit.tv/WW and download the darn thing.
Why are you angry? What's happening?
I'm angry that anybody would impugn...
I thought it was the field guy thing because that was freaking me out too.
I'm freaking out about Harley
I thought
Hahn.
it was the goat thing. I thought he was angry about the goat thing.
And all apologies to potential Pulitzer Prize winning author Harley Hahn. I'm sorry.
I'm not apologizing to that hack.
What about his cat? Apologize to his cat also.
I'm not even sure that's a cat.
I'm not sure it is either.
Thank
A ball of fur and some eyes. It's like a Wookiee child or something. I don't know what's going on there.
On Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.